Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, make sure you go ahead and check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using the code OmniPoke. For today's video, we are going to be reviewing all the interesting and best cards from the Sword and Shield Rebel Clash set. The set release is the 1st of May and is going to have a big impact on our format. There are some cards that will be going into literally every deck. I don't think the overall set has a huge amount of card quality, but those that are strong are immense cards. They really are. So let's jump into the ratings first of all. It's going to be in the top right of your screen, so if you want the quick and dirty, my opinion on it, it's going to be up there for you. Skip through if you really want to. The ratings are based on the current standard format. I don't really give any consideration to expanded at this point. So do bear that in mind when I am evaluating these cards. Not much thought towards any other format but standard. A quick rundown of the ratings. 1 stars are interesting but unlikely to see play. 2 stars have some potential but no real powerful applications. Maybe there's no home for the card just yet. Maybe there's no archetype that you can see it going into. 3 stars, where we start to get a little bit more promising here. They could go into current archetypes that we already know about or look to have a big part in a new archetype, even if it is going to be below top tier. 4 stars will certainly see play and will have a notable impact on new decks or when adapting current archetypes. And then 5 stars are what really do knock it out the park. They're key players in top tier archetypes, or they're a card which will see play across a number of decks as a staple. There's also the community rating to go off of, so not just my opinion being taken into account here. I got almost 200 responses from the set review, so I really do appreciate it for everyone who did get involved. And that's going to give you a bit more insight here. You get the full pie chart of responses to get really a good mix of where people think a card is. Oftentimes, this is a good reflection on how playable many people see the card to be. Let's kick off then with one of the best cards in the set. Actually, probably the best card of the set by far, realistically. Boss's Orders. It is a very simple but very effective supporter. Switch your opponent's active with one of their benched Pokemon. It is a reprint of Lysander, word for word. And yeah, it's going to blow everything out of the water in terms of the current options that we have. Pokemon Catcher's coin flip based, Custom Catcher requires combo pieces, and Great Catcher is specific to only GXs and EXs, and these are getting less and less relevant as the format pushes towards the V meta. So Boss's Orders certainly is going to be incredible. What I also have to bear in mind in this set is that we have great recovery for supporters as well. So using a Boss's Orders early or just throwing him into the discard pile early means that he's there to access later on via ball search cards thanks to the new Eldegoss V, as well as the Mind Report Mewtwo combo that can be used with the Oranguru now that we have the Scoop Up net as well. So we have a really impactful supporter that can just access your opponent's bench, potentially spammable as well. Because of the nature of these Pokemon, and the new Scoop Up net that's coming out means that we can reuse this card when we need to. So I can foresee Boss's Orders taking the place of all of these customs and Pokemon Catchers for the most part, and becoming at least a 2 of, probably more towards the 3-4 end of the spectrum, depending on how much reuse you want via your Pokemon. So yeah, Boss's Orders is the new way of gusting for pretty much every deck. Just a few notes on this. I think the only decks that won't be playing Boss's Orders are things like Fire decks that still have Ninetales, and they obviously need to use Welder instead for their supporter for turn. So I imagine they will still be playing the Ninetales. I think pretty much everything else will be playing Boss's Orders. There are some decks that can potentially use things that can scout items, like maybe if you're using an Inteleon line or something, you could still choose to play custom catchers. But the fact that, you know, prizing can be an issue, discarding an early custom could be an issue. You end up only being able to use one gust effect in an entire game a lot of the time with custom catchers. Boss's Orders is very, very different in that regard, where now nothing is safe. So very, very cool. I also think it does direct us towards having more strong draw engines on our boards, so we can still access our manual attachments, our evolutions, our Pokemon that we want to get on the board, whilst being able to use the supporter. So think about things like Cincino. We've seen this be the forefront of control for a while, but I can foresee more and more decks going towards, you know, Cincino, Silvally, Magcargo with Oranguru combo, these sorts of things going into decks just so that you can do enough during your turn and end on a Boss's Order. So I think it does push the meta towards more setup-based Pokemon on our board, which I think is definitely important. Another big note as well is that we finally have more reliable Gust against Pokédoll decks. This could finally be a bit of a thorn in the side of Pokédoll. I'm pretty excited for this myself because Pokédoll is quite an awkward strategy that I don't think it was super intended to be the way it was, or it was all Florgus based and stuff. But there we go. We finally have a boss's orders. I still think you need to have multiple reuses of boss's orders in order to beat a lot of these Doll decks, and they're by no means dead straight away. But this is finally going to be a nice challenge to them, which I think is also just healthy for this format in general. We then go to a much less inspiring card in Dan. You draw 2 cards, play rock, paper, scissors with your opponent. If you win, you draw 2 more. Now, even if you are as good as I am at rock, paper, scissors, this is only really, on average, a draw 3. A draw 4 for me, of course, but for you guys, it's roughly a draw 3 with a bit of excitement thrown in. We've had some interesting coin flip cards in the past. They've never been super good. Team Galactic's Wager was played, but that's because it was technically Disruption at the time. So yeah, we're not going to be seeing much RPS on the tables, fortunately. But yeah, he's a cube card for sure. Milo is also an uninspiring supporter. You discard up to 2 cards from your hand, then draw 2 for each you discarded. So it's basically a mixture of the old Sophocles that we've had recently in the the Sun and Moon block, as well as a nerfed Felicity's Drawing, basically. Because if you just do the discard 1 effect, you only draw 2 cards. But in an era where we have Sinlin, which is discard 1 to draw 3 plus get back a guaranteed good supporter or a guaranteed good play for next turn, is just always going to outclass Milo. So unfortunately, while Sinlin's around, I see no reason to be looking towards this Milo card. Also, if you want to have discard synergy, like I just said, if you want to be playing like boss's orders and you still want to have discard synergy, stuff like Cincino, stuff like Acrobikes, these things are going to be like way more valuable. So you don't want to have any low impact supporters in the game anymore, because you need to either be drawing 7 cards of the research or gusting. That is basically it. There are no other supporters that matter. That's why you're going to see some very, very harsh ratings on supporters, by the way. Olena, I'm also rating a 1 star. You can only play this card if you discard 2 from hand. Then you get to look at your opponent's hand, put a trainer card you find there to the bottom of their deck. So you're stopping them playing the game, ideally. Hopefully, you're doing some hand-locking shenanigans. You're putting them into awkward situations, either with things like Persian or these Surge Stamp, Jesse James-style approaches. I remember in Sanders' recent control list, he did play a Pawniard, which has essentially this effect. The Bag Slash gets rid of an item card of your choice from their hand. It does discard it rather than put it to the bottom, which is obviously slightly better, but you're not spending your attack, which is obviously very good. So I think the key things Olena would have been looking for are things like switches, things like custom catchers. Obviously now custom catcher is pretty much useless, so it's basically exactly rods and switches that you're trying to put to the bottom, so then your opponent can't have access to them, and maybe it means they have a turn of not attacking you. Obviously, the discard can be a little bit painful. I think that's a reason why I'm a little bit put off this, because you're naturally trying to synergize this with other cards like Jesse James, which are already discarding cards from your hand. So you end up putting yourself into a precarious spot where you can't use Olena or Jesse James combo again until you've reloaded your hand like a decent amount and used a number of power pads, maybe Brock's Grit even, to get into a healthy hand size all over again and have enough cards to keep spamming this. So I think the opening text that make you discard 2 cards means that it's not really as spammable as you would like with Surge Lusamine or Sinlin combos, which does make it a lot fairer, I think, a lot of the time. So I just think this isn't quite as strong as just going for like random Marses. I think Marses are just fine because they're giving you hand advantage in the early game, at the very least, if you have nothing better to do. And realistically, you're still picking off some key pieces at times. And the Olena's only ever like delaying it and putting it to the bottom, so I don't think it's strong enough to go into the controlling packages. We have a reprint of Skylar. Now, it looks like the community are a lot more excited about Skylar. I think they're reminiscing to the good old days, but realistically, now that the Turn 1 rule changes have come into effect with Sword and Shield, you have to look at this card very, very, very differently. Oftentimes, Skylar was able to get you things like Tropical Beach back in the day, get you Rare Candies turn 1, get you Bull Search turn 1, and be like a nice utility supporter. Or at the worst, there were plenty of situations where you would Skylar for like an N or a Professor Juniper. Now, you literally cannot do that anymore. It is way too slow to do those things. Think about how much like the decline in play that we've seen from Green's Exploration since the rule changes. I think that should really indicate and hit home how awkward Skylar is now. Green's Exploration is basically only played in the Charizard build of greens these days, and is extremely rogue and has basically put out no results in this format right now. I think Greenzard is slightly underplayed right now, to be fair, but just that effect being like halved in a Skylar to be universal is just not worth it at all. We have such good access to trainers already in the game with Inteleon lines, Alolan and Ninetales, neither of which are played. Everyone just plays Jirachi because Jirachi's the nuts. And also, if you're going to be one of these like evolution-based decks, I think Rosa in general is just getting you so much bang for your buck in a supporter card. It's oftentimes getting you that trainer as well as, you know, the next Pokemon that you need and attachments as well. So I think Skylar is kind of bullied out by the other options that we have in the format right now. And once again, I reiterate, if you're not using Boss's Orders, you need to be doing high impact supporters for sure. You want to be moneying for Hand Disruption or using Prof Research. The format is really divoting towards those three supporters. I don't see much room for much else. That's also why I'm rating Sonya pretty harshly. I actually got the chance to rate this in the Sword and Shield set review, and I think I rated it a 2-star, but after having a bit more hindsight now that we've seen Oak Setup and Elm basically become Binder Bulk, Sonya is now going to fit that same category. You're allowed to search your deck for 2 basic Pokemon or 2 basic energy, reveal them and put them into your hand. I'm not sure if it's any combination, the same as Roseanne's research, because there might be a small bit of translation issues there. It's not guaranteed that this is the exact wording of Sonya. If it is a mixture of 2, there's that slight kind of workaround where you could get yourself an ADP plus turn 1 attachment, which could be relevant because you only really play like 1 or 2 basic waters in your deck a lot of the time. So yeah, that could be the only brownie points we're giving Sonya right now, but basically, it doesn't really shape up that much stronger than things like Oak Setup or Elm's Lecture. So even then, even if she had that little bit of extra flexibility in her text, she's still got a lot of stiff competition, and basically no decks are playing these supporters right now. We move on to the items now, and we start off with Full Buckets. You get to search your deck for 2 water energy, reveal them, and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So it is a blue Professor's Letter. Man, Frostmoth really was looking for a card like this. I think a lot of people were super hyped on the Frostmoth in the previous set and were unfortunately a little bit disappointed with how the deck was able to function. The fact that you get to play Full Buckets now makes the deck much more fast, and I think that is really exciting for the deck. You could be looking towards getting things like Palkia GX attacks off on turn 2 pretty consistently, just to remove energies from play straight away and really become a bit of an annoying defensive deck. In many regards, it can mean that you can high roll a Keldeo V that little bit easier, which I think is very cool. Basically, the Keldeo build had to high roll Keldeo in order to win games. So I can definitely foresee Bucket becoming like a full-on 4-of in Frostmoth. Previously, you would just play a bunch of like Acrobike and Dedenes and try to cycle the waters, get them in the discard pile, so you could then use energy retrievals. Now you get to front load it with buckets and potentially have late game supporters in the form of Fisherman instead, which I think is way better because just deck space in general and the amount of filtering you do from your deck, meaning that the Dedenes become stronger in the game because you've already thinned out a bunch of your energy cards. So I think the deck's flow will become much more natural, which I think is very cool. Now, does it mean the Lapras deck is going to be much stronger? I'm not too sure about that. I think Lightning is still going to be strong. Pikarom seems like it's okay. And there's a few other Lightning cards from this set, which makes me a little bit wary of that stuff. So I think Lapras is kind of getting bullied by some of the new Lightning things that we're getting in the set, which is a bit of a shame. But there's also the option for the new Milotic V deck to have a Frostmoth engine. I know there's a few people mentioning this Milotic in a few different ways to accelerate it, be it Welder, Frostmoth, or just straight up ADP. But the Frostmoth is certainly a consideration here, and I imagine you'll be playing Full Buckets in that list as well. So for its overall Moth utility, going to give it a 3-star. We're still lying in wait for the busted water stuff for the Moth, by the way. The water attackers that we're getting from this set are not all that inspiring. So Frostmoth basically plays a lot better than it did in the Sword and Shield format, but the overall win condition hasn't changed for any of the blue decks, unfortunately. So I imagine Frostmoth will still remain below top tier. We come to Nugget now, and we get the first of this little mini series of cards that we're getting from the set, a little like subsection of cards that have an effect once drawn for turn. Nugget is the first. It's the only trainer version that we have. A bunch of other Pokemon can cheat evolution this way. But essentially it says you can play this card if you draw it as the first card for turn before you add it to your hand. So Players beware, if you're playing IRL, you draw off the top of your deck, make sure your hand is far away from you, maybe even on the table when you are playing Nuggets, so you can literally flip it over as if it's, you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! You can just slam that Nugget down and draw 3 cards. Now, is this effect actually strong? Well, obviously there's a couple of ways we can manipulate the top of your deck. If you've drawn into Nuggets, you can Primate Wisdom them back onto the top for the following turn. If you're playing Magcargo, you can smooth these over to give yourself a good play for the following turn. And we do know that there is a Magcargo deck out there. So my first port of call would be, do we play this in Magcargo? And the idea is, well, my opinion is definitely no. There's no space in Magcargo to be playing luxury cards like Nugget, because you have to bear in mind that this card, whenever drawn, not for turn, is a blank. You've drawn a dead card. So whenever you're trying to do shuffle draw effects or Professor's Research digs, you draw blanks off Nuggets. They really are terrible. And also you have to bear in mind that it's only really a draw 2, because your initial top deck for turn would have been, the first card that you draw with Nugget anyway. So it's only really a draw 2 if you set up that perfect situation. Also, that situation is disrupted by Marnie or Reset Stamp. I think we've seen how little play Lucky Egg has received, and I think a decent amount of times you can see Lucky Egg as a tool that draws you 2. And also you can preemptively put down Lucky Egg at any time. Whenever you draw Lucky Egg, it's not a blank, whereas Nugget really is. So I think because this is not proactive draw like an Acro Bike, it's never better than Acro. It's also not as proactive as Lucky Egg even, because you can always just slam those into play and force people to take knockouts that way, or at least skew their prize trade or make life awkward for them. There's that hidden value that the Egg gets that Nugget never does get. And although there are synergistic cards, obviously Primate Wisdom is going to be in a bunch of things now as a staple, thanks to scoop up net combos that we get with Mind Report. We're going to see a bunch of Wisdom, but the Nugget is just not going to be strong enough, especially because it can be disrupted by Stamps and Marnies, which will be regular occurrences in the format still. So yeah, Nugget going to be the 1-star for me. Glamorous, but certainly not great. We move on to Rotom Phone. You get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose a card you find there, shuffle your deck, then put that card on top of your deck. More Oranguru synergy, more synergy towards Make Do and other draw-style Pokemon out there. But ultimately, it is a -1 from your hand a lot of the time. Yes, it's getting you any card, so it's slightly better than a Stellar Wish. It's like the old Stellar Wish Jirachi, essentially, where you could pick anything. So with synergy with Oranguru, it actually is kind of okay, but early game, a lot of the time, your early ball search has to first be towards your attackers, your setup Pokemon, sometimes even, disruptive Pokemon like Absols and stuff have value over Oranguru. So again, it's one of these cards that you only really want to play if you're playing multiple Oranguru, so potentially an include in exactly Magcargo, but I don't see much else going on here. Magcargo, just anecdotally, did sometimes play things like Pokénavs, so this might be a little bit stronger than Pokénav for exactly that deck. But ultimately, it's a Trainer's Mail without the actual taking of the card, which means it is only ever a combo piece, so it's going to be 1-star. Also, no community rating for just a couple of these cards because they were released in side decks, which I thought I'd just throw into the set review for the sake of completionist, but that's why there's not any pie chart for just 1 or 2 of the cards in this set review. We move on to one of my favorite cards of the set. I think obviously Boss's Orders is the strongest, but Scoop Up Net is going to be ridiculous, and I cannot wait to start playing with this card. For those of you who played in the SP era, you must be losing your marbles right now, because I never thought a card like this would be printed, but that's the power level that we've got to in the Pokemon trading card game now. We now have a Poketurn style effect for everything that is 1 prize, which is just absolutely unreal. You put a card except V or GX into your hand and discard all cards attached. Now, do bear in mind, V also encapsulates V maxes, so everything that has the V on it cannot be picked up by Scoop Up Net. Thank goodness we don't want 390 hit point Pokemon being able to be scooped up for free. That's ridiculous. But yeah, this effect is absolutely crazy. We have some great synergies going on already with Pokemon that we have in the set, as well as, well, everything in standard really, which is amazing. I think one of the biggest ones to take note of is going to be Mind Report Mewtwo. That card gets so much stronger with Primate Wisdom. I can certainly foresee it being a combo in decks. For those of you who can't remember, Mind Report allows you to put a supporter from your discard pile to the top of your deck, and then you simply Primate Wisdom immediately back into that supporter card, essentially getting you Boss's Orders or a Research to keep going throughout the game. So naturally that combo is certainly going to be insane. It effectively is a Pokemon version of having VS Seekers available to you, which is just absolutely absurd. There's also things like Delcat and Inteleon that could also be alternatives for getting specific pieces out of your deck. There's some more meme stuff with the Pantomime Mr. Mime from Detective Pikachu, as well as the Wish Upon a Star Jirachi Prism Star. And I think that meme could actually become a dream, question mark. Scoop Up Net certainly does help free up bench space for you to make this Jirachi work. And you can also try and like spam this as well. So yeah, pretty crazy. You can get the Wish Upon a Star going and then instantly Scoop Up Net it back into your hand. Scoop Up Net the Mr. Mime, do the combo again. So you could potentially cheat multiple prize cards with Jirachi Prism Star now, which is absolutely crazy. So that's going to be a lot of fun to play around with for sure. Also, of course, it just makes Zigzagoon essentially the exact same as Crobat G back in the day, but with a 1 retreat cost, which is slightly worse, but that's basically it. So yeah, being more flexible damage placements makes Zigzagoon crazy. Giratina being an enhanced hammer to the active looks very enticing now that there are some even better special energies coming out in this set. Speed Lightning, Horror Psychic Energy. There's already things like Aurora and Unit being played in ADP and some Mewtwo builds as well. So Giratina being a spammable threat also seems like a definitely strong one prize option. And then of course there's the creme de la creme, Stellar Wish. Just getting more Stellar Wishes is always good. Never going to be a problem for you. So in addition to your switches, you want to play Mind Report Guru anyway, probably, and it just makes Jirachi better. It's absolutely absurd. It helps you undo things like spell tag damage as well, which I think is a low-key nerf to Malamar, which I think is cool as well. So yeah, Jirachi gets better. Is it enough to bring Zapdos back? Zapdos was played in an era with multiple switches, multiple ropes, and Guzmas. Now we have multiple switches, Scoop Up Nets, and essentially Lysanders with Boss's Orders. So yeah, I'm excited for the Zapdos deck to come back. I want it to be a thing. I think some of the Ultra Beasts still have great typings in the game right now. So yeah, I'm looking towards playing some one prize stuff for sure. Quick note on the tanking options of this card, because obviously it's a heal effect as well. There aren't too many good things you can try and play. I think there are some stage 1 like metal stuff you can maybe Metal Core Barrier onto, like Steelixes or Copperages. But do bear in mind you are discarding pieces attached to yourself, so there could be some awkwardness there. I don't think there's many good tanking things we can go for with this right now, but if we do get any things like the Hooper effect from Shining Legends that just say no to certain cards, Scoop Up Net becomes a very, very scary card to print, so do bear that in mind as well. We then move on to Tool Scrapper. The community are super hyped on this card, but we have to remember that people are probably thinking back to Field Blower, and they're probably thinking back to Tool Scrapper way back when Garbodor was a card. We don't have Garbodor in the format, and Tool Scrapper was oftentimes played in decks for allowing you to get abilities back, essentially. And even then, Tool Scrapper would be a one-of, maybe. And I think Tool Scrapper is, again, a one-of, maybe in a lot of decks. The biggest credit I give to Tool Scrapper in the current standard format right now is ADPization might look to play this over Lysander Labs, because a lot of tag team decks have gone towards Chaotic Swell and Big Charm. So that's the only real credit I give to Tool Scrapper. At the same time, though, one of the decks that will do this, the Swell Charm combo, is Mewtwo. And Mewtwo gets heavily challenged by Dragapult naturally, so Mewtwo like drops down the tier list a little bit just on his own. So there may not even be any reason to play Tool Scrapper. There are probably better ways of countering things like Pikarom that play Big Charm Swell. You know, like Wobbuffet, for example, than having a Tool Scrapper. Yes, Tool Scrapper is much more versatile. You can sometimes hit, you know, escape boards and air balloons that are played in a bunch of decks. Yes, you're hitting things like Spell Tag against Malamar, but we already get Boss's Orders in this set anyways. You can get rid of things like Frying Pan if you're a Fire deck, but Fire decks don't play things like Reset Stamp. They don't play any cards that aren't just immediately good in the opening turns, because you never want to see it at the, you know, like first 20 cards of your deck. You want to see it in the bottom like 30 or 40. So all of those cards are just not played in Fire. So even if you want to remove Frying Pans, is it even that good? I don't think so. Curse Shovel we'll get onto later. It's an annoying tool, but I don't think it's actually that predominant. If Curse Shovel decks do become predominant, that is certainly interesting for Tool Scrapper, but right now I just think its applications are quite limited. To removing switching cards, which aren't actually that strong. Just the threat of Tool Scrapper in the format, though, may make some passive tools like Big Charm just naturally look a lot worse, makes Lucky Egg look a lot worse. So just the threat of Scrapper being out there might adapt decks a little bit, and I'll give some credit towards that. But for me, Tool Scrapper seems like one of those 64th cards rather than a 61st card in a lot of situations. Right now, Labs is played in exactly ADPization sometimes, not even always. And in those sometimes, it's just a one-of because you have a Guzhala package that can search it at the right time. That just shows you how situational the Scrapper actually has to be, because you can scout a Labs with a Guzhala for the moment that it's good, but just having that one-of Scrapper is going to be really, really like niche in your deck, especially in a format with such reliance on acrobikes and research. The card doesn't sound that good to me. I'm just going to give it a 3-star rating, much lower than the community. A lot of people are rating this very, very high for my own preferences right now, because, you know, just looking at other things, like look at Tord's recent Malmo 60, didn't even play Reset Stamps. Reset Stamp is a far better card than Tool Scrapper, but it's just the statement that you don't want to play anything that doesn't help you draw cards in the opening 1 or 2 turns, because you don't get to play supporter cards. So if your opening hand has a Tool Scrapper, you're super sad. That could be anything else that helps you get set up. That's basically the mentality of the game in the new Sword and Shield format, because you can't support a turn 1. So anything that's dead in your opening hand is like super punishable. So yeah, that's why I'm going to give Scrapper the slightly lower rating than most. We move on to tools now. We have Burning Scarf. This is a tool for fire types. When attached to a fire type that takes damage from the opponent, that attacking Pokemon is now burned. Essentially a Rocky Helmet for exactly fire. And fire is not looking for a tool like this at all. Fire usually wants to pad out their deck with as many fire energy slots as possible, if it's Blounds, or if it's just a Ninetales based with a bunch of welders. You never really have a luxury for this. I think the only tool fire decks have ever seen are skateboards. Sometimes there were things like Stealthy Hoods for Mirror, but that was like super niche and not even like a good option, I think. So yeah, Burning Scarf is terrible for fire decks. Therefore, it has no home. It's going to be useless. And yes, there's an Arcanine in the new set that gives you plus 100 hit points, but we'll get to that later. Curse Shovel, I'm also rating a little bit lower than the community. It does seem to be a very scary tool, though. When the Pokemon this card is attached to gets knocked out by an attack from the opponent's active, discard the top 2 cards from your opponent's deck. So extra mill tools always are a little bit sketchy, and it does worry me a little bit. Yes, this can work on Lily's Pokedolls, and there's even a Palossand in the set that has specific wording towards Curse Shovel to help it mill even more. But in general, I think you just stick this on a Guru and start announcing resource management and make your opponent sad that they are taking prizes along the way, because you're opening up Surge for the opponent and also you're milling yourself with Curse Shovel activation. So it's an extra deterrent for people to take prize cards. It's extra speed towards the actual win condition of control. But let's rewind a little bit. I think 6 cards a turn is already enough discard for control. And just like I was saying with Tool Scrapper, this is not a card that gets you set up. This is not a survival piece. This is an exact luxury card for control, in my opinion. Now, there's potential that we move away from Bryson Man altogether, or just going down to like a 1 copy of Bryson Man in control decks, and letting Curse Shovel do the heavy lifting for control. Or sorry, for mill, I should say. And then your supporters go back towards hand controlling things, where you're getting Marses, Surges, Boss's Orders now in combination with Galar Mine is going to be a huge combo piece for control, because you can trap things very, very easily now, which is just gross, by the way. So I think you can start... Well, control naturally will start panning out their deck with more disruption supporters. So there are situations where you don't want a Bryson Man, basically. And Curse Shovel does fill that niche where you're still threatening active mill against the opponent just by having this in play. But at the same time, it's not early game consistency. It's, you know, basically the last thing on the list for control is starting to use Belelba. You get down to, you know, like a 10-card deck size before Belelba starts getting good. So Curse Shovel, in that regard, is not a useful card for a large portion of the game. And sometimes there are those situations where you just stop your opponent attacking altogether. That's usually like an end game goal for these controlling decks, right? If you're actually trying to affect your opponent's board, if you're going to try and recover Crushing Hammers and use Boss's Orders with Galar Mine and try and do chip handlock stuff, your end game is just your opponent stops attacking you and then they run out of stuff. And Curse Shovel doesn't help towards that goal. Now, I've given this a 2-star just because you're not milling yourself, and that's also good. It can help you manage your own stuff a little bit better. I think it is scary just because it's more on top. I keep arguing why it's not as good as just going Belelba combo, but just going from 6 to 8 is a bit scary on turns. So maybe it just makes the aggro mill more aggressively, and that's good enough. Just you get to that point where it's just a silly amount of cards hitting the bin too quickly for the opponent to deal with. So there is that I can give it credit to, but really I think ultimately you want to commit towards more consistency early game options so you can get towards this Surge Double Belelba late game. I think that's going to be more consistent. We move on to Galar Mine now. This is a very promising stadium card. I do think it is very awkward. Coming out in the same set as Boss's Orders as well, which is super cool. Both players' active Pokemon have 2 more added to their retreat costs. So pretty crazy. It's doubling the effect of Aqua's Secret Base. Now, Aqua Base wasn't played a lot, let's be fair. But it was sometimes played in things like Toad Tina, which is worth noting actually because, it was a hammer-based deck, it was a control-based archetype for sure, and Galar Mine fits right into control. Yeah, you guessed it. One of the best archetypes that we've seen in the Sword and Shield format now gets the option to Boss's Order, Galar Mine, trapping Dedennes with a free retreat cost. Just sounds really, really rude. I say Dedenne exactly because you probably don't want to do this against non-GXs, because of Scoop Up Net, of course. So do bear that in mind. But yeah, Boss's Order trapping is going to be a big win condition of controlling decks and milling archetypes for sure. And yeah, it's going to be absolutely gross. I think that's the main home for Galar Mine. Also, in general, I think, just anything playing Guzhala and stuff can consider Galar Mine. Just like we splash Absol into decks to try and disrupt early game Stellar Wishes, forcing people to spend switches rather than just grab a skateboards, hurting their outs and such. Galar Mine can just be a stadium bounce that also is disrupting Stellar Wish, which is naturally just great value because Stellar Wish is obviously crazy. So in general, I think a bunch of decks could consider this going into their list, just how we've seen, tech one-offs of like Swell and Labs go in. Galar Mine could do the same. And then there's the added option of this becoming an aggressive stadium card for a couple attackers in a format that we have that work off of increased retreat cost. We've seen the Tangrowth Rogue deck previously, Grass Knotting. This obviously adds an extra 60 to your damage in addition to all of your Absols, so that can start becoming dangerous. It means that you're two-shotting even against things like VMAXs, which is great because Absol, doesn't work against VMAXs, so making your Tangrowth actually viable against evolutions is going to be important. So that's pretty cool. And also it is a plus 100 buff to the new Milotic V as well. Aqua Impact really does get silly just with the placement of a Galar Mine and 1 or 2 Absols. Aqua Impact really is blowing through a bunch of things. So yeah, there's the power behind Milotic for sure thanks to this Galar Mine. So this is an excellent stadium as a defensive option, an aggressive option for a couple of these lower tier archetypes, I would say, and also a natural disruptor to Jirachi. So there's not much more you want in a card, to be honest. We then move on to Training Court. It is essentially a power tree in that it allows you to get back a basic energy from your discard pile into your hand. That's all it is, getting back energy cards. Now, unfortunately, right now we have Viridian Forest, and Viridian is far, far stronger. Viridian is deck thinning. Viridian doesn't force you to have already drawn into the energy in the first place and got rid of that energy card as well. So Viridian is always going to be way better than Training Court. We have good recovery pieces in Ordinary Rod. There's not really any deck crying out for Training Court at all. You always want the deck thinning option. You always want to have discard synergy. Viridian just completely bodies this, unfortunately, right now. So there's no real reason to look towards playing Training Court. Turffield Stadium, definitely an exciting one for grass decks, in my opinion. It's kind of like an Evo Incense, but far, far stronger. You could also think about this similarly to things like Ultra Space or Brooklet Hill. The Turffield allows you to search your deck for an evolution Pokemon that is grass, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Pretty simple effect, but actually very, very strong. I think we saw Evo Incense see a low amount of play in the format, but I think Turffield will specifically be very different because Grass already has an overload of good basic ball search. You already get to play quick balls and net balls, so you naturally have a bunch of basic search, so you're not that worried that you can't find your early game basics. And this stadium allows you to get Rillaboom VMAX, a very interesting new card from this set, as well as your Rillaboom Stage 2 to actually get your acceleration going. So I think this is exactly in the Boomer deck. I think you're not playing this if you're Rowegg because you naturally cheat with Super Growth. Potentially this can become a Flapple option as well if we're going to be spamming apple drops on people. But I think specifically this is for the Rillaboom deck. And what's cool about Turffield is you get to put it down and then research, and then you can find the candy and get your Pokemon afterwards. Unlike Evo Incense, where you need to have Candy Incense in the same hand. So you get to do a lot of things where you get that proactive stadium down, that's there, it's bouncing other people's stuff, it's disrupting the opponent, whilst also getting you value on the other side of hands once you've used draw supporters, which I think is really important for the consistency of this Rillaboom deck, because at the end of the day, you're trying to hit candy combos, and we know how frustrating that can be. So I think Turffield is going to be a vital resource for the Rillaboom deck, exactly. And if you want to do some apple drop memes, it's also an option for you to loop your Flapples, which is pretty fun. But ultimately, it's not going into the Eggrow deck because you already cheat with Super Growth. And just a quick note, we also have Grovyle, which is basically seeing no play, by the way, that just gets you grass Pokemon. but yeah, that basically saw no play. It's something to bear in mind, but yeah. This Turffield is much, much better because you can put it down proactively. It's not a dead card, and then you can just research and have better odds of hitting candies, basically. Capture Energy is also one that a lot of people are hyped about, and I too think that the effect of this card is crazy. It's just the homes for this card is quite limited right now because of the lack of decks out there that actually want to attack with colorless energy attachments. Let's look into this card a bit deeper though. While this card is attached to a Pokemon, it provides colorless. When you attach this to one of your Pokemon, search your deck for a basic and put it directly onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. So it is a nest ball effect in a colorless energy. That is absolutely absurd. The power level of this energy truly is ridiculous. Like it's super good for setup. It's like having extra quick balls in your opening hand, which is just an absolute dream, especially if you're the player going first, because you can just, turn one, attach a capture, get your ideal basic down. And that really is crazy. But the issue here right now is that a lot of the decks in our format have colored energy attachment requirements. Pikarom is all colored energy. Fire decks obviously all want to have Welder Synergy instead. ADP's first energy attachments need to be Metal Water, and you want to have always Metal Energy for Brave Blades. It's a pure metal cost. Mewtwo usually wants to have, again, Welder or the specific energies, and it's never going to be stronger than Weak Guard, unfortunately, especially going into this format with Dragapult being an option. So all of the top decks cannot play this card, even though it's absolutely absurd. So that's the problem. There's no real home for Capture Energy right now. The only real place I can see this with a lot of validity is Control. Control naturally plays a low energy count, but they normally play like Recycle and then a couple other energies. Usually it's Fire right now, so they can do the Magcargo Mill approach, but you could certainly think about having Capture Energies over Recycle Energies. Now, Recycle obviously gets you a lot of like late game value, but early game, just having more outs to early game Zacians or early game Mincenos sounds excellent to me. It just really does allow you to get into the game and start your game plan. So I think Capture Energy is probably like a 2 of in Control. Maybe even the full-on 4 count goes in, to be honest, because just getting Intrepid Sword is ridiculous. So yeah, I think that's the main home for Capture Energy. Then there's a couple other like Mimi stuff. Like it is a low-key buff to things like Whimsicott GX if you want to. If you want to play that crazy code, you can get some extra Pokemon into play, which I guess is a little bit... There's some merit, I guess, to that, you could say. Because it actually does get you... into the game a little bit easier. Obviously, you're trying to get multiple colonies down as well as a turn 1 Porygon, so Capture Energies may end up going in. At the moment, though, they only really have space for like Recycles, Triple Accelerations, Captures, and then Fairies. You're going to end up playing like 12, 16 energy cards, which is a little bit awkward, so even a deck like Whimsicott has to juggle space to actually make this card work, which is a shame. Just one other note, things like Volcarona GX hasn't really seen any play, which is unfortunate, but we're starting to get to a critical mass of actual ball search and search in general, where these sorts of approaches where you're just trying to flood the board of things and get value from these admittedly strong abilities could become a thing. So just giving some of this more niche stuff in the format more ball search, essentially, is going to be absolutely crazy. So making some of these lesser inconsistent decks actually function a little bit more is quite exciting, and certainly a well-designed card, I would say. We move on to Horror Energy now, and this is basically the difference between Capture and Horror Energy. We immediately have homes for this card. I think Capture Energy in a vacuum is super strong, but Horror Energy just goes into a couple decks that we already know are going to be very, very strong. It provides a Psychic Energy to any Pokemon you attach this to, but if it's attached to a Psychic Pokemon that gets damaged by an attack, your opponent's active takes 2 damage counters. So yeah, very, very good. It's kind of like a reprint to Dangerous Energy. Now, Dangerous Energy saw no play, but Dangerous Energy was also limited to exactly EX Pokemon, and it was in a format where there was plenty of non-GX decks viable. Horror Energy is much more universal. Also, you can attach you can attach Horror Energy to things that aren't Psychic Pokemon as well, with no downside. So it's a far, far better card than Dangerous Energy, and as we know, Psychic is a relevant archetype, or a relevant typing in the format right now. There is the new Dragapult VMAX, which I am personally super hyped about. It's done very well in early Japanese tournaments. I believe it's going to be a really, really top-tier contender, and Horror Energy helps push its naturally low damage output that little bit better, so you can help two-shot things like Tag Team Pokemon. Its math is super relevant for sure. Also, there's some kind of more niche, one-prizey Psychic stuff in the format in the Baby Dragapult, as well as the Galarian Cursula, which again has naturally terrible damage output, but the Horror Energy can help push that a little bit more to actually become more of a threat. There is, of course, Mewtwo as well. Mewtwo has played a bunch of Psychic Energies in the past to help with Latios, Espio, Naganadel sniping, and even opening up that Miraculous Duo GX attack. So you can foresee, I can foresee Horror Energy being an option in Mewtwo as well, even if it is just a 1 or 2 count. And then, of course, there is Malamar. Now, obviously, Malamar wants to use this sparingly. Again, probably a 1 or 2 count at most, but it's a little bit of min-maxing, you know? It's an extra attachment that can give you more damage counters, and every damage counter matters with Malamar, as many Mali players will tell you, because you have such good manipulation of damage. You have spell tags, you have Blown, you have Esper, you have Mew, you have all sorts of things that can make every damage counter be relevant. So I can foresee this card going into a bunch of decks. It mainly got the 4-star rating because it goes straight into Dragapult, I think guaranteed, as a high count as well. Possibly a straight 4 of, depending on if you're playing Malamars or not in your list. So yeah, Horror Energy going to be great in one of the new flagship archetypes from this set, which is why we're giving it such a nice rating. And as you can see, the community are pretty much in line here. Just having a quick swig of water because I've already been talking way too much. As we move on to Speed Lightning Energy, I think this is absolutely stunning, this card. Again, you can attach it to any Pokemon, and it provides a Lightning. If it's attached to a Lightning Pokemon, you get to draw 2 cards. You just get 2 cards for free. It's double draw energy on a flavored energy as well. That is just absolutely absurd. Man, they really have blessed Lightning type recently. I think it's pretty nuts. Now, interestingly enough, Pikarom has basically said no to the tag call package recently. I think most people have just said full blitz or bust, and they want to just play a bunch of basic energy cards. So I really think Speed Energy may end up being like exactly a 1 or 2 of in regular Pikarom, because obviously if you do get that early game high roll of attaching a Speed Energy, you get extra draw towards your full blitz combo, which is crazy. But you never really want to Guz Hala for this card, because Guz Hala has proven to be less effective than just the turbo builds of Pikarom. So it's either a means of going back towards the tag call package, or it's like a 1 or 2 of in Pikarom if you are going to play turbo builds and play full blitz or bust, basically, which is interesting. But then there's a whole heap of new stuff from this set which love receiving Speed Lightning Energy. I think it's very likely to go in high counts into a Toxtricity VMAX deck. I can also foresee it going into a Boltund V style approach, or even like a Turbo Coco V style deck as well. Boltund looks to be like bit part player in a handful of decks, but also maybe his own archetype in general, just because Lightning Storm can get to ridiculous numbers, which is also very cool. And because we've got that scoop up net, and we've got Speed Energy now, I am crossing my fingers for Zapdos to come back. I was a huge Zapdos fanboy. I really, really did love the archetype. And giving Zapdos extra draw, that just sounds epic. I really think that sounds really, really cool. Anytime the opponent doesn't kill a Zapdos, you have the option to scoop up net and draw 2 off of another energy attachment, which is just nuts. So yeah, let's go Zapdos players. Let's rise up and make the build all over again, which is cool. Also, there's this fun kind of like wacky degenerate combo where you can draw a bunch of energies with Crazy Code plus Scoop Up Net using a Lightning Pokemon. that can abuse, like you can abuse the speed lightning energy and potentially draw like a huge amount of cards very, very quickly. So that could be a lot of fun. Maybe it brings about some turbo unknown hand lists, similar to how we saw Salazzle hand when Salazzle was first released. That could be a lot of fun to explore as well. It gets capture energy and it gets speed energy, so could be some fun Porygon Z memes coming in the next few, in this set. We then move to Twin Energy, an energy that I believe is grossly overrated right now. It's not DCE, guys. Just chill, okay? I've looked at the card pool, and on screen are the best receivers of Twin Energy. And man, that is a sorry sight. That is a mess of Pokemon that we have right now, guys. You need to chill. Yes, Twin Energy's effect is crazy. It provides 2 colorless to everything that isn't a V or GX Pokemon. If it is attached to a V or GX, you still can do it, of course. It only provides 1 colorless, so it's just a regular colorless energy. Again, I've just said about capture energy, how unusable a regular colorless energy is on V Pokemon. But where it shines is the 1 prize stuff, and man, these options are pretty poor. I mean, Weezing was a good archetype when we had Counter Energy and DCE. Now we have Twin Energy plus Triple, which is nowhere near as good, and Counter Energy meant that you actually had a late game finishing option with your Tapu Lele, the baby Tapu Lele. And obviously Weezing now is in a format where Malolana's a thing, so it's super bad, and there's also scoop up nets. So yeah, Weezing kind of sucks. Thwompfall is like a hot meme, and I can't wait to try it, but it's never going to be much better than that. Lost March does have still some decent typing available to it, but we're coming into an era where Dragapult is sprinkling damage counters, so anything of low hit points is going to get absolutely slaughtered. Palisand we'll get to later, Vikavolt we'll get to later. Gallade's damage output is shoddy. Golurk doesn't let you play supporter cards. So yeah, like the options that we have are few and far between right now. Twin Energy for potential, yes. That rating that you can see from the community is super high. Whenever we look at any new Pokemon in future sets, you think, man, Twin Energy is going to be the nuts for this guy, right? But as of right now, as of the standard up to Rebel Clash format, you know, it is terrible. So we're giving it the 2-star for experimentation. Good luck to you 1 prize players. And we move on to the Pokemon now, starting off with the grass types and working our way through. We start with a stage 1 Appleton. It's a 90 hit point grass boy with the delicious fragrance ability. Once during a turn, you may flip a coin. If heads, switch one of your opponent's benched basic Pokemon with their active. Now, it's a limited gust effect, and it's also on a coin flip. So whenever you're thinking about committing 2 spaces to an Appleton, just commit 2 spaces to a Pokemon catcher instead. Or do one better and just play Boss's Orders and take whatever you want, guaranteed. That's going to be far, far better almost every time. If you are going to be the Apple Drop meme deck, that's possibly the only time you have any merit to adding in a 1 Appleton to your list for some extra gusting options, because then you can commit all of your supporter to draw to actually get more Flapples out, which I guess is a little bit valid, but I think the Apple Drop deck is probably not going to be strong enough as its own thing, and it's probably a bit part player in other stuff. So yeah, Appleton, just the 1-star. We move on to Eldegoss V. Man, this card is just so simply strong. It's a 180 hit point grass V Pokemon. It has the Happy Match ability. When you put this card from your bench, onto your bench from your hand during your turn, you may put a supporter card from your discard pile straight into your hand. I've mentioned a bunch throughout this set that Scoop Up Net Mewtwo Oranguru is a whole combo, but why need a 3-card combo when you could just find 1 card off of a Quick Ball or a Com and just go ahead and announce Boss's Orders for game, Prof Research to dig for game, or anything else. Man, this Eldegoss is pretty crazy. It's going to be the way that many games will be concluded these days, just by having this as a ball search option and making you far less worried about Marnies or reset stamps. It is just absolutely absurd. It's going to be that game-winning card that you are going to be tilted by for sure. He just hit his Eldegoss and won the game. Essentially, it's going to be the sentence you're telling your friends at round 3 when you've lost. So yeah. It also has the Soar attack. For 2 colors, you do 50, and you may shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached into your deck. Now, it is expensive. It's 2 individual attachments, which isn't ideal. But being able to potentially reuse a Happy Match, that's not bad at all. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. 180 hit points, a little bit better than 160 because you can't get hit by things like Cramorant, which is nice. You stay out of range of a Naga Snipe as well, so although you are, just a sitting 2-prize duck in a format with Boss's Orders, you're not as easily sniped by the other stuff, which is actually pretty relevant, which I like as well. So yeah, Eldegoss V is just pretty insane. Like I've said so many times this video, you're basically playing 3 supporters in this format. You're playing Marnie, you're playing Research, you're playing Boss's Orders, and when that is your discard pile, when all 3 are in those, in the bin, you just have so much flexibility with Eldegoss to do whatever you want, which is absolutely awesome. Also, I'll give some credit to utility supporters as well. Things like Team Yellgrunt or Bead, these cards which you can weave in, and in a certain point in a game, it'll be a nice option for you. You can get away with playing some of these one-offs now, because at any point in the game, you can quick ball or research this card away, the Bead or the Yellgrunt, and then get the Eldegoss out and use it at the right moment. So yeah, there's some validity to, maxing out counts of the good supporters and then playing 1 or 2 counts of the situational ones and weaving in that Eldegoss to make them useful on specific turns. So yeah, overall Eldegoss isn't VS Seeker, but is still a crazy card. I imagine this is a one-of across a huge number of decks. I don't imagine it being much more than a one-of, potentially a two-of in some decks. But overall, I think it's just a game winner, man. It's just a super good card. We then move on to Flapple. Flapple is another stage 1 grass type that has 80 hit points. Apple Drop says, once during a turn, you can put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, then shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. What I like about Apple Drop is it's not just when you put it into play. You can put this guy into play, he can sit around, he can chill, he can be just there until he's useful, and suddenly Apple Drop to help you reach a knockout. I think that's one of the best upsides to this card, is that he can just sit there and chill if he wants to, but also he is technically unlimited damage if you think about it, because you can just keep looping this guy and keep getting him back and keep getting extra damage counters here and there. So he kind of reminds me of Sneaky Bite, but it's a lot better in the fact that you can do it when you want to. You can make sure that it reaches for a knockout. You can make sure it's that last bit of extra damage to finish something off that you've hit earlier on the bench. It can help you play around things like Reset Stamp. So in that way, it's a little bit better than Bat, because it's just as immediate if you want it to, but is also sometimes a delayed effect for when the damage actually matters, so it's not wasted, which I think is pretty cool. It does have the attack Acid Spray for 2 colorless, you can do 60. Flip a coin if heads, discard an energy attached to your opponent's active. Yes, there's Twin Energy, but I don't think it's ever going to be strong enough as an attacking presence on his own. But I do want to try out a 4/4 Flapple deck, and I'm just trying as hard as I can to use things like Grovals, Turf Fields, a bunch of Netballs and Quick Balls, and just spam apples everywhere, and then just end on Twin Energy Acid Spray for the sake of it. So that could be pretty fun, something to bear in mind. Usually, though, I think this is just getting the low rating because, for the most part, you've heard me gush about Scoop Up Net, and if you want to have extra damage buff, just add in a Zigzagoon to the deck that already plays 4 Scoop Ups, and that's just going to be pretty crazy. So yeah, unfortunately, Flapple has to compete with Zigzag, which is a bit of a problem. We move on to Ludicolo and Lombre. Lombre is the first of these Pokemon that has a similar effect to Nugget. When you draw this for turn, you can immediately bench it if you have space, which is pretty cool. Yes, it's helping you cheat out some evolutions, which I am a fan of, because no one wants to play rare candies in their deck. It takes up too much space and is inconsistent. So now you can just play Lombres and Ludicolos to try and get yourself there, which is pretty fun. Ludicolo, his first attack is the only one worth noting. High Spirit Rush does 60 times the amount of prize cards you have already taken. So he's a late game threat for sure. If you've taken, 4 or 5 prizes, he starts becoming dangerous, with that multiplier of 60 not being too shabby either. I think really this can only be thought of in a deck that is naturally playing Twins and Acceleration Energies, maybe something like a Nidoqueen deck, where you can either ripen this guy in one turn and just swing, or you can maybe use some Primate Wisdom or Magcargo combos throughout the game. There'll be a turn where Lombre comes off, you put him down, and then Ludicolo is like a late game bomb. Something in the Thwompful deck, potentially, where you spend all your resources early to just take early aggressive knockouts with your Steelix, and then just once you're out of 4 retreat cost Pokemon, you've at least got High Spirit Rush to finish the game. I think those are the hot memes where Ludicolo is going to find his home. But yeah, 1 star, because he is still that hot meme that's only a late game card in exactly Twin Energy based decks, basically. We move on to Rillaboom V and V Max. We've got the tin promo of Rillaboom V, and now it's coming out in the core set as well. Forest Banquet allows you to search for 2 grass basics and put them immediately onto your bench, then shuffle your deck. Obviously, it's a nice card. It makes Rillaboom not only, your best attacker, but also a relatively ideal starter. If you go second, you can go ahead and get those, what they call Grookey's down, which is obviously very good, and maybe some other setup stuff, maybe some disruptive stuff like an Absol. Oh no, it only gets grass basics. Let's chill. It can get you your next Rillaboom and a Grookey, let's say that much, or double Grookey to protect around boss's orders. So yeah, that's pretty cool, and it obviously sets you up towards these bigger attacks later on. The regular V also has Wood Hammer that does 220 for 4, and you put 30 on yourself. I mean, if you really want to, you can, turn 1 attach, Banquet, turn 2, get your Candy Rillaboom, attach, and Voltage Beat, and do 220. We know that's a decent number. It's going to deal with a bunch of, basic GX and basic V Pokemon before they get the chance to VMAX, which is nice, and even hitting enough for Zacian, which is super relevant, of course. But ideally, you have the dream, which is turn 2 Candy Rillaboom, and also find the big old VMAX. You become a 330 hit point Grass Boy. You have Scratch, which is 1 for 50, which sucks. But you do have Barrage Max. For 3 grass and a colorless, you do 130 base, and you can discard up to 3 grass energy from this Pokemon. You do 50 more for each you discarded. Now, I like that you can be flexible here. 180 is a good breakpoint of damage. Also, the 230 is a good breakpoint of damage, but 280 is your cap, and that is also great for dealing with good old tag team Pokemon, which is of course something that's important to note. So yeah, Barrage Max is decent damage output. I'm only giving this a 3-star because you are still quite heavily setup based. Like, if you don't Candy on turn 2 and Voltage Beat, what are you doing in this deck? You're literally doing Scratch for 50, which is terrible. You are still weak to fire, so you probably still need to play like 1 or 2 weak guard energies to have any chance against those archetypes. Unfortunately, we're limited in the amount of good grass 1 prize stuff. Like, it's exactly Shaman Prism Star and like not much else. So if you come up against like other 1 prize decks, they can sometimes just out trade on you because this Barrage Max is basically just wasted damage output potential. It's just not ideal. So yeah, I think Rillaboom still is going to struggle. You don't like fire stuff. Well, there's still a card, obviously. You're inconsistent because you need to hit Candy on 2, otherwise you're doing nothing. And not only do you need to hit Candy on 2, you also need to hit a stage 1 on 2 as well. So yeah, big old setup deck, essentially a new Bulu but with more steps. But the payoff is slightly higher, so I will give some credit to Rillaboom VMAX. He hits like a truck, so it's going to be a low tier deck, but it's going to be one of those things that comes off sometimes, and you can be pretty happy because you got this big boomer just smacking people about, which is pretty fun. We move on to fire now. We have Arcanine. Now, I've already dunked on Burning Scarf, but it does have that little bit of extra synergy here, where Arcanine can attach a Burning Scarf and gain 100 hit points. Unfortunately, though, Fire Main just has 130, and, Fire has way too many options, let's be honest. So let's move on from this card. Like, there's just so many better things you could play in Fire. We move on to Charizard VMAX. It has the basic that does 80 for 3 colorless. It has 220 hit points, and also you have this Fire Spin attack. For 2 fire, 2 colors, you do 220 and discard 2 from this guy. Not ideal, again, being outclassed by pretty much every other basic fire type. One thing that's interesting is at least Claw Swipe can knock out Jirachi's turn 1, which is some early pressure, which is pretty cool. If you are able to, Welder on 1 and get an attachment. If you are able to Welder on turn 1, get an attachment, you can then go into this VMAX, and use Gmax Wildfire on turn 2, which does 300. 300 is a good number. We like to see 300. Pretty decent overall. You do have to discard 2 from this guy, so potentially you're weaving in triple accelerations to here to try and undo some of that adverse effect, or you've just tried to hit double welder as well as hit your stage 1, which isn't always ideal, not always that easy. So this gives me a little bit of Snorlax vibes, basically. It feels like it's more steps than Snorlax, but the payoff is way bigger. And what I realized with Snorlax was already the Gmax full was too many steps. It was too difficult to try and accumulate triple accelerations and a full board and a stage 1 consistently on turn 2. So with that logic, trying to use it with Charizard where your main draw supporter is going to be a draw 3 from Welder, I'm pretty sure this is going to be too much work. 300 is good damage, but Fire has many other options of dealing 300 damage, and even that cap can be, pushed even further with like Baby Blounce. So yeah, this Charizard is a lot of steps and just too many for me overall. Same thing can be said really for the Cinderace VMAX. The basic can have free retreat if there's a stadium in play, which is a nice little thing. It can help you have extra Jirachi synergy early game. Crimson Leg 140, not bad for early game pressure. The Cinderace VMAX though, it just doesn't have the same push potential that other fire types have. The Flame Ball max does 170 and burns. I mean, that is just poor damage output. And counter does 30 plus the amount of damage that you received last turn. So you can maybe try and set this up with like Malolanas and Max and Hyper Potions and stuff like that and try and be like tanky and whatnot. But, you know, if I'm fire, I'm playing fire so I can smack stuff about. And Cinderace does not smack stuff about. It doesn't sound that great to me at all. You can see the community have a bit more hope with this card, but honestly, fire decks are like so strong right now that you really have to be insane to be stronger than the stuff that we already have. Everything else is already like basics, and there's already consistency issues with that deck. So trying to be a stage 1 is just, yeah, it's pretty difficult for me. And the damage output's just not there for this card, so just the 1-star rating. We go on to Lampent. It's just a little nice include that can go into the Chandler kind of meme deck that we have. It has that same ability as Lombre. Top entry, when you draw this for the first card of your turn and your bench isn't full, you can put it immediately onto your bench, which is cool. So yeah, it's a little bit of an extra buff towards Chandler. One key issue of Chandler is that your early Spirit Burners sometimes just miss Chandelures and Lampents, and you just lose yourself the game. So having a little bit of extra early game synergy to get a bit of safety net of Lampents is just nice. So yeah, I think Lampent is just the new Lampent that you play in Chandler, but that's about it. I thought it was worth noting because it's a mini buff to a deck that's kind of just out there on the ladder for a bit of laughs. We then have a nice stage 1 Ninetales. I initially kind of overlooked this card, but I do think that it has some potential like Rainbow/Aurora energy synergy. Hex does 30 and 90 more if the opponent is affected by a special condition. So you can use things like that Garbodor and then just smack people. So that's pretty interesting. You can try and set them up. It kind of has vibes, same as like Frostlass or anything like that, where you would just play some random stage 1s to help hit for weakness and such. So I'm giving it that low rating, but there's going to be a critical mass of like stage 1s that can just hit enough type coverages for cheap energy attachments where you can just be like a bit of an anti-meta kind of rogue deck, which could be interesting, you know. And also Ninetales is a good species because you can also play Nine Temptations, and if you're playing a stage 1 deck, you probably want to commit your supporters to drawing cards so you can actually find things along the way. So maybe you actually play like quite a thick Ninetales line. Obviously Fire's good typing with things like Zacian running around and also Copperaja potentially. So the VMAX. So yeah, having some good weakness to hit and also have alternative gusting in a 1-prize deck sounds exciting to me. So yeah, it hits enough for Zacian if you can put a status on it. So yeah, the 2-star for exactly that, being a 1 energy attachment fire guy that can deal with Zacian. Ninetales V is also pretty interesting. You have 200 hit points, you're a fire type. You have that tail shape-shifting attack for a fire and 2 colorless. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. Now, I've put on the bottom a few attacks that are relevant, but I don't actually think there's that many. You can see the community are a little bit more excited about this card than I am. But that's because there is actually not that many attacks I want to copy. I think Ultimate Ray might be one of the strongest. There's a few V Pokemon that have an attack that can knock themselves out, like a Zacian can knock itself out, or a Koko can knock itself out. So that's a little bit interesting, where you can just welder attach and essentially mirror their own attack back into their head and knock themselves out, which is cool. There's a small note to be had here that you can use opponent's resource management against control. So I think that versatility, where it's like just useful enough in enough matchups where it could end up becoming a 1 count in Fire. But let's be honest, Fire is already getting, like the toolbox is already there. It's already got a bunch of 1-ofs in the deck. You basically just play like 1 Charizard, 1 Victini, 1 Heatran, 1 Victini Prism. Is there much more room? Like Turtonator, Blacephalon sometimes. I'm not sure if there's much more room for just like another 2-prizer in this list. I think it's usually outclassed by Victini because Spreading Flames is such good versatility. So yeah, I think Welded X may not be looking for this card. It does also have that Flamethrower attack that can at least knock out, you know, Dedenes and stuff. But pretty much every fire attacker can do that for 4 energy, so not too much to worry about. So yeah, I think Ninetales is more likely a no than a yes in ability Zard. But it is still an option, and it may just be that one of that we play because it's slightly good enough to be in the list. So just something to bear in mind, and as again, more attacks come out, this card gets more versatile and more powerful, so it might be worth considering for that exactly. What I do like about this card is that, unlike a lot of these other fire guys, it has a lot of colorless in its attack cost. So we'll be looking at Colossal later, and this could be a way that Colossal, mainly fighting decks, get to have a bit of fire splashed into their list for some nice type coverage, again, against things like Zacian and stuff. So yeah, potentially more likely going in Colossal than it is into Welder decks, which is quite interesting, but there you go. Onto the water stuff now. We have Ice Q and Ice QV. I've already rated Ice QV back in the Sword and Shield set, but we actually didn't get that, so we'll go over it again. 210 hit point water type with cold absorption. When you attach a water energy from your hand to this Pokemon during your turn, heal 30 damage from this Pokemon. Ultimately, everything hits 210 these days, so not ideal. But you do have Blizzard. You do for 2 water and a colorless 120 and 10 to each of your opponent's bench. I think we may be getting to this critical mass where water is getting so much spread, it may end up becoming the most viable way of playing Frostmoth. But I don't think we're there just yet. This Baby Ice Cube also does some spread stuff. You do 70 to the active and 10 to each of your opponent's bench again. So, and also you have this Ice Face where if you're free of damage, you reduce damage coming into you by 60. So you are quite tanky. You're basically like a worse Volk Prism. But that is a decent one prizer, you know. It's not the worst I've ever seen. But ultimately, you know, Volk Prism is the carry for water decks right now, and having things like an army of Ice Cubes into like a late game Magikarp Warlord is probably too much of a dream for me. Hit points are still too high. We don't have enough targeted spread. Like Kyogre is probably our best targeted spread in water. So water decks really need to have a bit of an extra push than just a general 10 poke to everything around the board. So unfortunately, hit points are just too high for these attacks to be that solid. But worth noting that water does have, or potentially will get to a point where it has a big critical mass of spread options and will be a thing. But right now, these Ice Cubes are not strong enough. They don't push it enough. Galarian Mr. Rhyme is an interesting stage 1, kind of like a binder card, I think. Barrier free is the ability. Prevent all effects from attacks done to your Pokemon that have any energy attached to them. All existing effects get removed. What I like about this compared to the old Espeon is not just your opponent's stuff. You can remove your own adverse effects. Things like Brave Blade and Thunderous Bolt, these attacks that stop you attacking next turn. You can just remove those by having a Galarian Rhyme in play. Unfortunately, though, it's still 2 spaces in your deck just to put a stage 1 in, and there aren't that many adverse effects out there right now. There's Dragapult VMAX. You can stop them sprinkling onto, you know, your attackers, but they can still sprinkle onto stuff that don't have energy attached to them. There's Inteleon that can remove energy cards, but I don't think Inteleon's that strong of an archetype. We'll get onto it, I think, next slide. But yeah, Galarian Rhyme, he's such a versatile guy at just stopping things that are awkward, but right now there aren't that many like annoying effects that your opponent can do with attacks just yet. But it's a nice binder card for sure. I think I'll certainly still be like getting a 1 for the binder, basically. We move on to Inteleon V and V Max. Again, the regular V is not all that impressive. 200 base hit points. Sharpshooting can do a 40 prod, which is okay for exactly like Ditto. Or if you're playing Scoop Up Net Zigzag, you can do a bit more. You have Aqua Report that does 130 for 3. And your opponent reveals their hand. Not great at all. You have 320 on the V Max. You have this Hydro Snipe, which is 60. And you can return an energy from your opponent's active to their hand. Actually a little bit annoying. You can try and combine this with Crushing Hammers or Team Yell Grunts and be low-key trying to like early game deny them while you manually attach your way up to Grand Bullet if you want to. Or if you are playing like Frostmoth or any other accelerator, you can try and buy yourself time to get towards this Grand Bullet. The only problem for me is Grand Bullet isn't really a good selling point. 160 and a 60 snipe to one of your opponent's bench isn't actually that strong. Like, Dragapult does this for 1 less energy, basically, and is able to sprinkle, which means you get around Mew, and also you make every damage counter actually work for you. Whereas these 60 snipes, sometimes they're a wasted damage. Yes, Mew can stop you as well, so, and you're an extra attachment. So overall, I just think this is a worse Dragapult. So that's a shame. It's just come out in the same set as Dragapult, and it's just way, way worse. So that's all there is to it, really. Yes, Hydro Snipe can be disruptive for opposing Dragapults, especially if they're not playing Malamar for acceleration. That's really the only credit I can give to Inteleon VMAX as like a low-key Dragapult counter if they're just going to be a one-turn attachment kind of deck. But then again, you still need to get them active sometimes. They can just attach to the bench and try and like mana you out of boss's orders and stuff. They'll eventually get attacking, and then you're still in a bad shape. So yeah, unfortunately, he's come out in the same set as Dragapult, which just outclasses it immensely. So a bit of a shame there. Milotic V, we've already mentioned with that Galamine. Aqua Impact does 10 and 50 more for each colorless in your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost. So, yeah, naturally, let's have a look at some of the basics we have in the format. Zacian has a 2 retreat cost, ADP has a 3 retreat cost, Mewtwo has a 2 retreat cost, Zard has a 3 retreat cost. So, naturally, Milotic is already smacking. And then you add on Galamine and Absol on top. Aqua Impact is getting really, really dangerous. This damage output is pretty crazy. A few new cards from the set as well. Copperaja has a 4 retreat cost naturally. I think Toxtricity has a 2 retreat cost. Unfortunately, Dragapult only has a 1 retreat, which is, I think, one of the biggest issues with this card, actually. But, yeah, Milotic can be smacking a lot of stuff in the format, which is cool. You also have Hypno Splash, which does 150 and sends the opponent to sleep for 4 attachments, which is a little bit expensive. And that's really my issue with Milotic in general. How are we powering this guy up? Are we going to go Frostmoth Buckets? Are we going to go Welder with a handful of waters in here? Or are we going to go straight up ADP? I think ADP is the one where we've seen the most success in Japan, because you're getting, again, extra damage buff, but also you need to attack less times overall with Milotic, which is good. But the question then arises, like, why am I ever playing Milotic over Zacian? And I think it's exactly because your damage output can go higher than Zacian against some important stuff, but unfortunately not against Dragapult, you know? So you're basically always worse than Zacian if you are playing the ADP build. So for me, you're either playing Frostmoth or Welder. So I think it's always going to be a little bit below the bar in terms of consistency a lot of the time, because you need to have multiple Absol down, you need to commit to Galamine, you need to either find the stage 1 or play a split of energies plus Welders. So I think you're not going to be the most inherently consistent deck in the world, unfortunately, and your damage output at the end of the day is still flexible, and as more VMAX Pokemon come out, unfortunately, it's going to have a bit of a hard time, and its natural hit points aren't that strong either. It's just, yeah, still a little bit below the bar. I think I'd actually prefer to play Tangrowth a lot of the time, because it has 1 prize potential, and you have more trapping stuff with Tangela, so potentially this is even overhyped, but I think it'll at least be a deck for its smacking potential against exactly ADP Zacian. Onto the lightning stuff now, we have Bolton V. It's a 200 hit point lightning boy that has Electrify for 1 lightning. You get to search your deck for 2 lightning and attach them to your bench Pokemon in any way that you like, then shuffle your deck. This is obviously nice. We have some very greedy lightning stuff out there. Coco V requires 3 attachments, as does Toxtricity. And, you know, 3 energies is just the start of the story for things like Pikarom and Raichu. So all of our lightning guys are pretty greedy, and they want to have energies all over the board. So as an accelerator, you can already consider this card as a one-of in existing lightning decks like Pikarom. Now, I actually think Pikarom won't play this card because if you're going to attack, you want it to be full blitz or bust, basically. I don't think you ever commit Ball Search to your early game to not be things like Coco or Pikarom or Dedenne, so I think Bolton isn't good enough for Pikarom, but it's probably going to be centered around his own deck, as well as like paired with Coco and Toxtricity, I would say, for that early game option for attachments, but also because Lightning Storm is actually like pretty dangerous. 10 base, but 30 more times the amount of lightning energy attached to all of your Pokemon. So it's essentially the Dragon Break attack on Rayquaza GX, but you have way less commitment to your own guy. We have Coco Prism Star, we have Thunder Mountain, so we have plenty of ways to accelerate this guy. He has his own acceleration in Electrify. There's nothing stopping you playing Rayquaza GX in this deck either, just to have extra means of getting lightning energies into play. You could try and play it with Nagas, like we've seen previous Turbo Ray builds in the past. So yeah, I think Bolton V can swing pretty hard. It's Rayquaza that also gets Electro Power as well, so man, this damage output is actually starting to look pretty tasty. I think it can actually get there a decent number of times, especially if you have things like Coco Vs to attach onto, because once early Lightning Storms, you know, once they start getting knocked out, your damage output kind of depletes. That was always the issue of Rayquaza in the past, but if you've used like Electrify and Coco Prism on Coco Vs, you at least still have late game push pressure. So I think this archetype as just Bolton Coco could certainly be a thing. At the same time, I can foresee him being in Toxtricity just to help get that VMAX set up in the early game. And let's not forget that even if you're not building around like Lightning Storm massively, this card just naturally like can be a 2 energy, just like prod Jirachi or just put pressure on people in the early turns and take some initial knockouts and threaten more down the line. So yeah, Boltund has some good versatile damage. Could be a build around. Could also just be like this one of like bit player in other decks as well. We move on to the stage 2 Luxray. Once again, we have that cheating Luxio, just like the Lampent and the Lombre. You can draw this guy and put him on your bench if you have space. And the Luxray has a 1 energy attack, raid 60. If you evolve from Luxio, you do 100 more. So 160 and a 1 energy attachment 1 prizer. Not too shabby at all. Let's not forget that we have even more cheating with Shinx. When you go second, you can evolve immediately. So you have lots of ways to actually be a little bit faster than a regular sort of candy-based deck. But the problem is you can't play candy in this deck because you need raid to be doing additional damage from Luxio. So unless you're getting top entry cheats, unless you're getting Evo advantage cheats, this Luxray is still pretty slow. And I think you have to commit a lot of space to like monkeying every single turn to get top entry cheating, because otherwise this Luxray is just going to be super, super slow. And ultimately 160 is like good damage output, but not actually that crazy. You're still going to need to combo off Electro Powers, maybe even play other damage buffs in there as well to do decent stuff. So it's a lot of work. The damage output isn't enough of a payoff. Even 160 for 1 isn't good enough anymore. It's a sad day for Pokemon. Toxtricity V and VMAX, though, look a lot more promising. I really like the early pressure attack on this early Toxtricity V. 210, and you have Poison Jab. You just do 20 and Poison. I'd love it to be 30 and Poison, because then you'd just be 1 E-Power away from dealing with Jirachis. But still, finding a couple E-Power isn't the hardest thing in the world when you have Volkners and you have Speed Energy now in the game. So Poison Jab for early pressure seems good. Just like I said with the Rillaboom, it means that Toxtricity V is not a bad start for you, which is actually pretty cool. There's also the promo Toxtricity V that I've got on the slide here as well, that has the Energize attack. You can just attach a Lightning from your discard pile to this Pokemon. So that can help you get towards that G-Max Riot. But ultimately, I think the new Toxtricity is stronger just because you have that option to knock out early basics. So that's pretty cool. Or even if you're not knocking out early basics, you're setting up damage for the G-Max Riot. Later on, you're also pre-poisoning them as well. So instant synergy here with your own VMAX, which is excellent. There's also the Electric Riot. You do 90, and if your opponent's active is poisoned, you do 90 more damage. Again, very, very good. You can be a 2-prize Pokemon knocking out other 2-prize Pokemon, so you can try and skew your prize trade against the opponent, not just forcing them to deal with 2 VMAXs. Sometimes the VMAX, then the V, then another 2-prize Pokemon or something like that later down the line. So yeah, Electric Riot also is a decent option for knocking out other 2-prizes, which is pretty cool. But this Toxtricity VMAX hits like an absolute demon. It has 320 hit points, and G-Max Riot does 160 and 80 more if the opponent's active is poisoned. So effectively a 250 base damage output after dealing with that poison tick. And you have E-Powers on top of that. Man, this guy is getting filthy. You are very easily able to knock out tag teams. You naturally knock out like Zacians and other V Pokemon that are looking to evolve into VMAXs. This guy is a big old threat, and he has a lot of hit points on his side. I can easily foresee Toxtricity taking 4 or 5 prizes on his own before he goes down. You can cheat a bunch of energies with Thunder Mountain and Coco as well, so a turn 2 G-Max Riot is not that difficult to pull off. We have a Garbodor in this set that can instantly poison the opponent's active as long as you have a Stadium in play, which you naturally want with Toxtricity anyway with the Mountain. So yeah, I can just foresee this being an archetype. I don't think you're that consistent, which is why I haven't rated this the full 5. Yes, Speed Lightning Energy gives you extra early game attachments, but ultimately a lot of the time you need to get an early Toxtricity down, you need to get a Trubbish down, you also need to probably get a Coco or a Mountain on turn 2, and you need to find E-Power, and you need to find 2 stage 1s. So it's a lot of setup, and it's not going to work as many times as you would like. But when you do, Toxtricity VMAX just straight up carries. He just carries you through the game. You breeze your way through once you get him going. So there will be those high roll games where you knock out a tag team turn 2, and this feels like the most disgusting deck in the format. But then there'll also be those games where you're just not doing much. Like, fortunately, G-Max Riot at least has that 160 base, and you only do the extra 80. So sometimes 160 base is like good enough on turn 2 anyways. So maybe you can get away with it a lot of the time. I like that 160 base a lot more, actually, now that I think about it, because it means that even if people are going to bosses orders up Garbodor and knock it out, you can then always just bosses order them back and go for the Denes and stuff. Also, Koga's Trap is an alternative, so you can just have that as an Eldegoss V option. So if they are going to target Garb, you can at least Koga's Trap and still get that huge burst of damage. So yeah, I think just because this guy has a silly amount of synergy with, you know, the Prism Stars, the Speed Energy, the E-Power, there's no way that this isn't going to work. It's just how often it works, really, which is why I'm not rating it that much higher. Now onto Vikavolt, guys. Sorry for all the sniffling and stuff. I've got a bit of a cold right now. It's a 1-star for me, unfortunately, because I just am hugely skeptical of Stage 2s, unfortunately. And this one is not only a Stage 2, but it also needs a heap of energy in your deck. Powerful Storm's damage output is 60 base and 20 more for each energy attached to all of your Pokemon in play. Yes, we have the Charger Bug, which is a cheater, and you can try and use Evo Incense and all this other stuff and Lurball to make sure you have a bunch of batteries lying around for a bunch of added damage. And yes, Vikavolt can hit hard, but at the end of the day, you're a Stage 2 that naturally needs to play a bunch of energy cards, right? You want to play Boost Energies, you want to play Twins, you want to play Speed Energies, I imagine, for early game consistency. So ultimately, you're committing a lot of space to wacky cards like Lurball, Candies, a bunch of special energy cards. It's going to be a bit of a problem for you. So my consistency, well, the consistency of this deck, I think, is super, super low. So unfortunately, that's why I'm going to be rating it a pretty low 1. I know there are some dreamers out there that are telling me this hits 300 turn 2. And yes, there'll be the highlight reels on PTCGO. That's all we get to do these days. But unfortunately, I think that's as far as it goes. Onto the psychic stuff now. We start with Clefable. It has the Mischievousness ability. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve, you may choose one energy attached to your opponent's active and put it on top of their deck. It kind of reminds me of a Crawdaunt, but kind of combined with a Team Yell Grunt, but also combined with a Chip Chip. I think initially I saw this card and I was like, worse than Crawdaunt, bad. But then I realized that we're also giving our opponent bad top decks. And control decks love giving people bad top decks because then you get a free turn out of them if you've handlocked them. So essentially, this could be a way for removing tempo from the opponent, removing energies in play, obviously stopping them from attacking, whilst also beginning your handlock combo naturally by having a mini Chip-Chip effect where they're just redrawing back into that energy card. So I think with Scoop Up Net, this card is actually low-key dangerous, and I know for a fact Sander's looking at this card. Like, there's no way he's not, right? And he's going to make it work somehow. I think Scoop Up Net is actually low-key pretty dangerous for cards like this, so I believe. I think Clefable is possibly a new way of playing Control, where it's just added into decks and you try and play a bunch of Scoop Up Nets. Quick note on Clefairy, it has a colorless attack that can flip a coin for a supporter as well, and it's a colorless attack cost, so you can try and play it with Capture Energy. So yeah, I think Clefable is actually low-key pretty annoying. Yes, we have a lot of acceleration in the format. We have Malamar, we have Welder, we have Frostmoth, so not every deck is going to be like wrecked by this Clefable, but the decks that do get harmed by this, it is actually like really, really backbreaking at times if it's spammable. So yeah, I'm giving it the 2-star for potential experimentation. Dragapult, I'm giving the 3-star. I initially rated this like 1 and then 2 and then finally went up to 3 because I think it will be like a below top tier archetype. But I think, again, psychic stuff just has too much synergy. I remember trying Gallade from Cosmic Eclipse, and it was like close, but then just kind of gate kept by Malamar. And I think this one potentially isn't gate kept by Malamar because you have that little bit more hit points, and sometimes you're undoing damage. And when you say no to their damage, they're using their Giratina and damaging their own stuff, which means Phantom Force is even stronger. So yeah, I think Dragapult isn't gate kept by Malamar like all the other one-prize decks out there, and has the whole synergy of having treasure available to it as a psychic deck. So yeah, Dragapult is an annoying card. It has the Infiltrator ability. If any damage is done to this Pokemon by attack, flip a coin if heads prevent that damage. You know how much I loved Fluffy Cotton back in the day when it first came out. It was a hot meme, and now, because we're a one-prize deck, we force our opponent to flip more coins. And the more times they flip, the more times they have to potentially waste a turn, which is just excellent for you. So whenever you get that free turn, you get to get 120 to their face, and also 3 counters on your opponent's bench in any way that you like. It really is just a baby version of the VMAX in many ways. You are 2 energy attachments, but you do have a natural free retreat, which is nice, and 150 hit points is pretty tanky for a 1-prizer. So yeah, I think Dragapult will be the new way of just playing coin flip nonsense. You don't have to play Whimsicott plus Porygon anymore. Now you can just play Dragapults and try and flip coins that way. I imagine you'll probably play at least a 1-1, possibly a 2-2 Malamar line in your list, so you get to use things like Copycat, Baby Blown, maybe even Shadowbox if you want to. All of these tech Pokemon that we've seen regular Malamar play for the longest time, just so that you can have, sometimes slightly more push potential with Copycat, sometimes extra damage manipulation with Blacephalon, maybe some Esper options in here as well. So you're not all in on having like a stage 2 every single turn. You can have some of these 1-prizes, basics, sort of carry the load on certain turns while you're just sat there with Dreepies and stuff on your bench. So yeah, I think this Dragapult is good. Psychic has enough support. I don't think it gets top tier, but flipping coins is always annoying, and who knows. Onto the VMAX though. Man, this card is a beast. The basic is even good. It has 210 hit points, it has Bite, 1 for 30, and it has Assault Jet, 60 for 2, and if it became your new active this turn, 80 more damage. That's not bad pressure at all. If you just happen to whiff the VMAX, you're at least putting some damage counters into play. And also, of course, you're doing 140, and that's enough to deal with a Mewtwo tag team for weakness as well. So you really are pressurizing Mewtwo out of the gate, which is awesome. But the VMAX is where things get absolutely nutty. You become a 320 hit point monster. You have Shred, which gets for all effects 1 for 60, which is meh. But Max Phantom, 130 and 5 counters on your opponent's bench in any way that you like is just very versatile damage. I know Shintaro did an article about this. He came second with the deck at a recent tournament, and Yaneda also came first with Dragapult VMAX in a recent Japanese tournament. And it was really when I heard Shintaro say, man, it reminds me of Ordino. And Ordino won Worlds, so that's pretty good. It's actually way better than Ordino because it's more natural damage, and also you never waste any damage because it's placing counters, so it can't be walled by Mew, and you're never wasting damage. So, man, when Shintaro said that, I was like, okay, let's take note. This card, probably crazy. Again, it's Psychic, so you have good ball search with Treasure. It naturally tends you towards wanting like a Mind Report package in your deck, which is cool. And you can also think about having Malamar. Now, there have been a bunch of Japanese lists that don't play any Energy Acceleration, but I am a little bit concerned about things like the E-Hammer Giratina, as well as things like Yell Grunt being teched in. I know Yaneda's list played double Yell Grunt in his 60. Also, Crushing Hammer has been a thing just naturally in like Luke Metalization and in Control. So for me, I want to be playing like a 2-2 Malamar line. I think it just helps safeguard you from all of that stuff, which is just important. It's going to probably make you have a slightly better mirror match, which I think is, again, just a pretty big deal. And then you do also get the door open to you to play, again, some of these basic Pokemon, the Mimikyus, the Blacéphalons, just to have some other Power Spike turns, just to have a bit more flexible damage output, because I do think Dragapult VMAX is a little bit limited in his damage output. The ratings on the community side are pretty high, but it's not glamorous in that you're not just smacking the face like a lot of other Pokemon in the format right now. So the real appeal of Dragapult is that its natural hit points is out of range of a bunch of stuff. You're weak to Dark, which is like excellent, and just Max Phantom just is very, very flexible damage output. You're naturally pressurizing evolving stuff, Jirachi engines. You're naturally two-shotting things with the help of things like Horror Energy, potentially Spell Tag or Giant Bomb. These are tools that I've seen in other Dragapult lists. So yeah, I think the damage is very, very versatile. Your natural package of Mind Report or Malamar are going to be consistent and strong. And yeah, it's just very, very easy to get set up. Like, it's just find your stage 1, attach energy turn 1 and 2. That's all you need to start swinging. And simple is better in Pokemon. So yeah, very, very good overall. Galarian Cursula is an annoying stage 1. It has 100 hit points. It has Body of Destruction. If this is your active and is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, flip a coin. If heads, the attacking Pokemon is knocked out. Now, I am very, very thankful this has come out in the same set as Boss's Orders as well as Dragapult. Dragapult can two-shot this with damage counter placement and get around Body of Destruction, which is great. And everyone else can Boss's Order around this, which is also a big relief. I think a lot of people saw this and was like, oh great, we have Fating Spell Gengar back. But no, Fating Spell Gengar was a good enough card on his own. Poltergeist was crazy, and the spread attack was crazy that Gengar had. Gengar was a good enough card that had an ability that was icing on the cake. Galarian Cursula is not the same, because Corner is trash. 60 for 2 and they can't retreat is nothing. It's so low impact that any deck that is like ADP based, they can just GX and then like gust, get around the Body of Destruction for a number of turns and force themselves to only flip the coin like once or twice. And if Cursula's only getting to flip the coin once or twice, usually it's like not enough to win you the game when your main attack is Corner, which sucks. The good news is it has Air Balloon available, so it could potentially just be this thing that you send up into the active, but there aren't that many good hit and run style approaches right now. We've seen more Peko flop. Beheeyem has never been that consistent. So yeah, I think Cursula is going to be a low-key flop, unfortunately. The community are a lot more hyped about this card. Yes, flipping coins for potentially taking 3 prizes for free sounds very good, but ultimately, in this format, you can't put enough pressure on your opponent with Cursula for them to not just like pass until they're ready to gust. So yeah, I think that's the biggest problem for this deck. You're not putting enough upfront pressure on the opponent. We then come to Hatterene. It's a stage 2 that has 150 hit points, Psychic type. It has Mind Hat. Once during a turn, you may use this ability. Both players discard a card from their hand, and your opponent discards first. If the player have no cards, they don't have to discard. So yeah, essentially it's an extra way of regulating your opponent's hand size. Try and get them towards the safe zone of Surge, Mars, Jesse James, potentially for control. Or just in general, being like, if you have discard synergy and your opponent doesn't, you're just forcing more resources out of their hand. Similar to the, what's the supporter called? Delinquent effect, where your opponent just has to sit on larger hand sizes than 1 now, which I guess is something. But ultimately, it's a stage 2, and it's a lot of work. The Droplets of Regret can only go onto the active. If that could spread, I'd be interested in this card. But it all has to go active, so yeah, overall not that fantastic. Just a 1-star. We've seen that Control doesn't want to fit in things like Orbital into their list, so they're probably not going to fit the Hatterene. Palisand, I'm rating 1-star. Community are a bit more excited about this, and it is an active milling tool, and we have seen active mill be successful recently. But Palisand's a lot of work. He's a stage 1. You need to have Twin Energy or 3 CE to attach to this guy in order to be using Submerged Sand, which discards the top card of your opponent's deck. If you have a Cursed Shovel attached, you discard 2 more cards. So you only get to discard 3 if you've got a Cursed Shovel, a Special Energy, and a Stage 1 attached, and you pretty much need to have those exact things every single turn in order to be being a dangerous card. And really, that's a lot of work. And the one reason why I think this is definitely going to be a 1-star is that we've seen Impersonate Mimikyu do basically nothing in Control, where Impersonate Mimikyu lets you just get rid of a Belelba from your hand and then you mill 3. That's the same as this Palisand doing Submerged Sand, so why would you not just put a Cursed Shovel on Mimikyu instead and be active mill for just a 1-prize Pokemon that gets to use Capture Energy and Cursed Shovel instead? And yes, that's what you should be doing. So Cursed Shovel Mimikyu could be a combo, and that's always going to be stronger than Cursed Shovel Palisand. So Palisand, definite memeage, because we've seen how sparing Control has been in using resource management. Usually they just want to end their turn on Intrepid Sword, so your attack really has to be absolutely bonkers to be worth more than drawing 3 cards in a Control deck. So yeah, if you want to play Cursed Shovel, try it with Mimikyu over Palisand instead. Sigilyph, I'm also rating a 1-star. It is a 110 Psychic type 1-prizer that has counterattack. If this Pokemon is your active and is damaged, you put 3 counters on the attacking Pokemon, and then it has Psychic Assault, which is 30 plus 10 more for each damage counter on your opponent's active, very similar to Wobbuffet's old attack. I think it was actually called Psychic Assault as well. So yeah, there's the internal synergy here where they hit you, somehow they haven't knocked you out, and you're putting damage counters onto them, or you play multiple Sigilyphs and, you know, they're naturally setting up Psychic Assault for more damage output, but, you know, like a 2 for 70 isn't great. If you put spell tags on here, it's like a 2 for like 100 or so. So yeah, again, not great damage output. Malamar has so many other options that they're trying to jam into their deck. Esper is way more valuable. Mimikyu, Blown, Mew. These all go in before Sigilyph. So I think that's the reason why I'm only rating Sigilyph the 1-star. it's basically behind a queue of like 10 other psychic basics that are way stronger than it, unfortunately. As we move on to the fighting types, we get to look at Colossal here. It's a 160 hit point stage 2 fighting type that has Tar Generate. You can attach a fire and a fighting energy from your discard pile to your Pokemon in any way that you like. It also has the Baked Avalanche attack, which does 130 for 4. A little expensive, but if you're against other one-prize stuff, maybe you can weave it in. This is kind of like the love child of a Vikavolt and a Serena that we've seen more recently in Cosmic Eclipse, or Unified Minds, I can't remember. Yeah, it's Unified, right? But yeah, it's attachment from the discard pile. We love that. And it's attaching 2 energies from the discard pile, which is similar to Vikavolt Strong Charge, which is pretty good. Yeah, I like attaching multiple energy cards. The problem is you need to play multiple energy cards. So yeah, I imagine this is probably going to be in a deck that plays a whole heap of fighting energies and then like 4 or 5 fires. And then you play a heavy Professor's Research, heavy Acrobike sort of package. We have a Sandaconda V that I'll get onto more, but I imagine that's the main attacker that we're going to be using with Colossal, at least immediately. And also what I like about this card is you have that extra fire energy attachments going on in here, so you can possibly play some, you know, like one prize fire revenge style Pokemon, like Entei maybe, that can respond on people for some extra type coverage. So I think you're predominantly a fighting deck, but you can splash in some fire stuff for some extra synergy. So yeah, I actually quite like Colossal. I'm giving it the 3-star because its ability is strong, and I just think naturally Sandaconda is good early pressure, and that means that you can be at least competitive as a deck in the format. You have type coverage against the new Toxtricity, you have type coverage against Pikarom, and you are good enough to knock out Zacians and stuff. And the early Sand attack that you can do with Sandacondas with buffs that we'll look at in a bit, you can also knock out like Jirachis and put pressure on tag teams as well. So I think Sandaconda's being slept on a little bit right now, so yeah. First, though, let's look at Phalanx and Phalanx V. The V has 160 hit points, which is absolutely atrocious, but it does have the Iron Wall formation. All damage done to your Pokemon with Phalanx in their name is reduced by 20. So, yeah, and this is stackable. So you can try and put a bunch of Phalanx V down to make your guys a little bit more tanky. It has the Giga Impact attack that does 210, and it can't attack during your next turn. Yeah, obviously that's a trash attack. You never want to build up towards that, even if you fill your board with Phalanx. It's also weak to Psychic, which is trash. And you also have the Baby Phalanx here. It's a 90 hit point fighting type that has Call for Family, search your deck for 2 basics and put them onto your bench. And then Team Attack does 30 for each of your bench Pokemon with Phalanx in their name. That also includes the V. So in a dream world, you can try and put a bunch of these down and get rolling, but it's not as good as Passimian ever was. The only reason why Passimian ever saw play was because it was in a Zoroark format, so the trash damage output that it did now became a counter-style archetype. There's nothing really good that you can be hitting for weakness with this. Like, yes, Pikarom, yes, Toxtricity, but I don't think they're going to be that relevant in the format that it's, you know, enough to just be playing for Lynx, because you still want to commit bench space to, you know, like Dedenes, Eldegoss, Victinis and stuff, so... Oh, not Victinis, what I'm talking about, Jirachis. I was right the first time. So yeah, you never actually get to fill your bench fully with Phalanx. If you do, you're going to have a hard time finding like multiple twin energies every single turn and stuff. So yeah, I think this is absolute overhyped nonsense. You do not want to play this. I'd rather play Colossal. Honestly, I would. That's how I'd rather be. I'd play Stonejourner and Colossal before this deck, 100%. Medicham is a triple acceleration energy option. It's a stage 1 that has Psychic. You do 60 and 20 more times the amount of energy attached to your opponent's active. That's all it is, really. A potential Ditto Evolution, a potential like 1/1 line in a deck that already plays 3 CE if you are concerned about the Pikaroms, the Boltons, the Toxtricities of the world. But yeah, that's only the credit I'll give to it. Just a quick note, really. Back to the Sandaconda, a bit more info on how I think this deck will function. The Sandaconda is a 220 hit points fighting type that has 2 attacks. The first is Sand, 1 fighting for 30, and you can attach a fighting energy from your discard pile to this Pokemon. That attack is so insane, and I think it's being slept on massively. What I love about this is that you're a stage 2 deck that doesn't need to hit the stage 2 going second, which is such a relief. You love to see it. Now you don't need to have a Colossal until turn 3 or 4. It is a huge relief. I think That is why I hate on every other Stage 2 accelerator in the game, because you need to turn 2 candy or you lose. We have Sandaconda. His little spit of sand turn 1 means that you can set up Sand Breath turn 2 without the need of like sweating out that candy. So that Sandaconda is an absolute treat. That 30 damage as well can obviously be buffed. In a dream situation, you get Diancie Dojo Vital Band and you hit 70. But otherwise, you're at least setting up things like tag teams for Sand Breath on turn 2. So yeah, I like these early prods. The pressure is definitely good. You can't write it off. If you just find a Diancie and hit with Sand turn 1, you've set up the tag team for turn 2. So yeah, Sandaconda, that turn 1 Sand attack is so good. Like, it's completely underrated, I think. But Sand Breath does 220 and you discard 2 from this guy. And then at that point, hopefully you've got the Colossal, you've got the Fire, you've got the Fighting all in the bin to start reloading them. Yes, 220 is the same damage output as Zacian. Yes, you could be playing ADP Zacian. Why would you play this instead? Well, type coverage is one thing. You can get to play some fire stuff, you get to play some fighting stuff, which is cool. And potential early pressure. That's like genuinely actually a thing going forward in this format. ADP is very low tempo in the opening turns, and that could end up being its demise against VMAXs, because VMAXs eventually just outscale you, and once you've used your ADP GX attack and they've knocked out ADP, Zacian isn't just sweeping the board like it does in current standard, whereas Sandaconda at least pushes early pressure. So you can either take individual knockouts on turns 1 and 2, or you can be knocking out the V Pokemon before they become V Maxes, which is something that ADP currently doesn't do a lot of the time. It can do, like, the option's there, and against VMAX stuff, ADP Zacian probably goes a different game plan where it just tries to get aggro Zacian and Gust, but that's a lot of work. It might be a little bit easier for Sandaconda because your natural, turn 1 attack can be Sand, turn 2 attack, you're already just attachment Gust away from dealing with their V before it becomes a VMAX. So I think I'm actually going to give a lot of credit to this card. I like it. I think Colossal Sandaconda is going to be a deck, and you can splash in 1 or 2 fire types as well to give yourself better type coverage against Zacian and try and make that prize trade a little bit more awkward for them. So yeah, I think it's being low-key slept on for me. Onto the dark stuff now. Galarian Weezing is a 130 hit point, stage 1. Chemistry gas change says that no other ability works while this guy is active. And thank goodness it says while this guy is active. So now it's a stage 1 Bide Barricade. And that's absolutely terrible, let's be honest. Wobbuffet was only really good because you could sit there, turn 1, and stop people actually setting up. Now that you're committing Ball Search into a stage 1 just to stop them setting up once they've already got set up on turn 1 is going to be useless. So yeah, that guy sucks. Severe Poison isn't enough damage. You just poison and put 4 counters on. Yes, you have Dust Island, Toxicroak. You can try and play like Absol's Dolls, Ringing Bells and stuff like that to make that status a little bit more relevant, but let's be honest, that's never going to be done. So thank goodness this guy says only active. I was not ready for Ability Lock to be back in the format. Garbodor, I'm giving the full 4-star treatment because he is always in Toxtricity, and I gave Toxtricity the 4-star. So Garbodor is a guarantee in an archetype that I believe to be at least tier 2. So yeah, we're giving him the 4-star for exactly that reason. Poison has some other synergies out there, like that Xatu and like the Ninetales that we saw earlier, but I'm giving him such a high rating because he will always be in Toxtricity, and I believe that archetype to be strong. Moving on to Grimmsnarl V and V Max. The regular V does 40 for 1 and Spiky Knuckle for 200 for 3 Dark Energy and return 2 to the hand, which kind of sucks. And the V Max does has 330. It has the G Max Drill, 170 base for 3 Dark is already okay. But you get to do 50 more for each extra Dark Energy attached to this guy. You can't add more than 100 on, which is a bit of a shame, really. 270 isn't that good of a number, unfortunately. We've seen that from Reshiram, unfortunately. So 5 energy for 270, I'm not interested. Yes, you have good type coverage against Dragapult, but I'd rather just play the basic tag team stuff instead of this guy. And yeah, there are accelerators for this, but it's still 5 energy, man. That is so much energy just to be doing relevant damage. Hydreigon is a stage 2. Now we have Dark Rain Dance in the format. As often as you like during a turn, you can attach a Dark Energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon. And yeah, we do have some decent Dark tag teams out there. Dark is a relevant type now that Dragapult is good. So I can foresee potentially a Ninja Zoro deck that also splashes in maybe Saboteur and Umbreon Darkrai. Although we've seen the Dark Box flop once, I can certainly see it flopping again, unfortunately. So I'm just rating Hydreigon the 2 right now. But just a note that Dark types actually get far stronger in this format with Dragapult being a thing. Malamar V and V Max, I'm rating the 1-star. I do not believe them to be better than the tag teams that I just showed on the last page. 210 hit points on the basic. Drag Off switches one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. It does 30 to it. That's not great. Brain Shake does 130 and Confuse. Who cares? And Max Jammer does 180. You get to look at your opponent's hand and put a card you find there to the bottom of their deck. Now, this is interesting. Kind of has that similar effect as Olena, but a lot more versatile because you can also hit their supporter cards. So we have seen some Crumbing style archetypes out there. We've seen Marnie Trevnoir combo in Mali Mewtwo. Unfortunately, that deck wasn't as good as we initially expected. And unfortunately, Malamar is, again, like a lot of setup. You probably are playing it with Weavile, with red and blue combo to just Shadow Connect all onto this guy. Yes, you are good type coverage against Dragapult once again. I will give it that credit. But, man, I would rather just play the tag teams, you know. 180 is just not good enough damage output. If there are attackers who are actually set up against you, this removal of, like, a research from their hand or something is just not good enough a lot of the time. So, yeah, the damage output is just too low here. Yes, you're disruptive. Yes, you're annoying, but it's not enough to win you the game a lot of the time. We have Aegislash. It's a stage 2 that has Big Shield. Reduce all damage from your opponent's attacks done to all of your Pokemon by 30. This is not a stackable ability, but we've seen this with Leavanny before for exactly Grass Stuff. Now we have a universal option, which is just 10 base damage less. Leavanny was played in exactly Rowegg for tanking. What's interesting, though, is Grass Stuff potentially can stack now because you can play a Leavanny and an Aegislash. And Aegislash isn't just your average stage 2. He can cheat with Duststone, but it's weird playing like a 1-1-1 line of Aegislash and 1 Duststone or 2 Duststones. The synergy doesn't quite add up there. If it was stackable, maybe we'd be talking about something different. But yeah, I don't see much of a home for this card, unfortunately. But an ability worth noting nonetheless. Copperaja and Copperaja VMAX look excellent to me. The basic has 220 hit points. Metal type has Adamantine Press. For 2 metal and the colors, you do 90 and reduce 30 coming into you next turn, which is okay for some survivability early on, and it can take early pressure knockouts. I say early because we have, obviously, metal sources. We have Beatin that does 180 for 4, a little bit overpriced, but it can still get the job done against some 2-prize stuff. And then the VMAX. Man, 340 hit points, what a beast. It has Dangerous Nose, 100 base for 3, and if the opponent's active as a basic, you do 100 more. So again, excellent for dealing with Denes, Eldegoss, all that sort of stuff, which is excellent. You are a little bit off the pace. You might need some buff from an Alter Creation or a Berserker if you want to get through Zacians, but those are things that we certainly can be playing, which is fortunate. And we have the G-Max Hammer, which does 240 for 4. Again, it's expensive, but the commitment that you put into Copperaja is like so worth it because he sits on the board, man. And comparing it to things like Lapras VMAX, which is like 4 for, 210, it's definitely a big buff, especially because we have even more damage modifiers. Again, an Alter Creation pushes this to 270. Berserkers pushes this to, like 280 if you have 2 in play, which is, again, just good numbers for you here. So I can certainly foresee Copperaja being potentially his own thing, but also include in ADPization because of that big hit point tag that he has, meaning that you use your Auto Creation, you get Copperaja VMAX out, and now their Brave Blades aren't doing enough, and you're just using that big old schnoz to take massive prizes. So I think he's good for potentially Mirror, and I think he's just good in general against other things that can hit around that 220 benchmark, but can't deal with 340 because, what can, to be honest, it's an absolute demon. Also, there's the potential tanking route of this guy. Obviously, you have 340 hit points, and you have a 4 retreat cost, so you can try using Buff Padding or Frying Pan, which is more likely, so you remove that annoying fire weakness. You can try and play it with, Luke Metal and all that sort of stuff to become a ridiculously tanky beast. You can essentially be 400 hit points and start healing this guy up as well. So, yeah, Copperaja is a big boy, and, we know Metal is an insane type right now. So I'm giving it the 3 stars just for the maybe-ization and the probable own archetype that he becomes that is below top tier. But yeah, he is exciting nonetheless. Duraludon I'm giving the 2-star rating because It's essentially a spiritual reprint of Registeel. That metal sharpener for 30 allows you to attach a metal from the discard pile to one of your guys. You naturally want discard synergy already with metal stuff because of sources, which is cool. And Power Beam does 110 for 3, which is, again, nothing to like take into consideration too much, but if you're up against other 1 prizes, it's something to bear in mind. But I think it can power up either Copper Raja VMAX or regular Copper Raja. I said that Gmax Hammer and Dangerous Nose might want a bit of help from Berserkers or from ADP, but it also could be some potential early game pokes from this nice 1 prizer, whilst keeping your other stuff safe. The non-GX Copper Raja really is too expensive right now to work, so making it more consistently able to get multiple Copper Rajas throughout a game is nice. And the VMAX, again, just wants that little bit of extra poke pressure. But I think the Copper Raja, like the straight Copper Raja deck, probably isn't going to be as good as just splashing it into ADPization, let's be honest. Galarian Meowth, I already rated in the last set review, but I'll just reiterate here. Roar of Evolution allows you to discard 2 from hand, search your deck for a Galarian Berserker, and put it straight into your hand. So you get to play this stage 1 guy, but you get to cheat out the Berserker immediately once you find the Meowth, which is just absolutely great. Previously, we've seen Zacian V using a combination of Shrine and Vitality Band with Guzhala package, but going towards the Meowth now means that you don't need to play Guzhala package at all. You can cut those tag calls, you can play Acrobikes and Spinners like we've seen Tord do. You're a lot more consistent, and you have a replacement damage modifier, which I think is really, really appealing. So I can foresee ADPization going down the 1-1 Berserker route, maybe even a higher Berserker line as well, because there's potential now for Tempozation to be a thing. I think Tempozation is a lot more valid if there are going to be more VMAXs in the format. For example, the Toxtricity and the Dragapult, because if those become actual decks, having tempo by just using Zacian to knock them out before they VMAX is just nuts. So there's potential that Tempozation or just straight Zacian Berserker becomes a lot more valid now, because the tempo that you lose with ADP might just not outweigh the fact that you could be pressurizing early and stopping people VMAXing. So yeah, tempo aggro-Zacian could end up being as much of an archetype as the ADP build, which is pretty interesting going forward. So yeah, I like it. Meowth, definitely a good include for exactly Tempozation, potentially for Copper Raja decks as well. Getting towards the end, guys, we have Probopass. Essentially, I'm giving it the 1-star treatment because I've weighed it up against Tangrowth, and it fails the test. Tangrowth has more early game consistency with Netball, and Tangler is a 1-energy trapping card, whereas Nosepass is a 2-energy trapping card. The upside of Probopass is that it has Metal Core Barrier for tankability, potentially things like Metal Frying Pan as well for tankability over Tangrowth, but ultimately I think Tangle Drag is a much better win condition for this deck a lot of the time. Like almost half your games with Tangrowth are not won by taking 6 prizes, but actually by trapping things, and Tangle Drag is a big deal for that. So yeah, Probopass basically has the exact same attack as the Tangrowth Grass Knot, but just in the metal form, and I think it is unfortunately just below the bar compared to Tangrowth. But yeah, we move on to the colorless stuff now. Chatot for me is a 1-star. Lucky Match is the ability. When you put this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench, you may flip a coin. If heads, put a supporter card from your discard pile into your hand. Man, flipping heads feels good, but also you're in a format where we've got Scoop Up Net Mewtwo combo now, and we have Eldegoss, so it's the budget option, but there are much better ways to go. Like, even if you are a budget player, just play a Rangaroo Mewtwo, man. Like, just guaranteeing is so much better than flipping that coin, so yeah, 1-star for me. Dubwool V is a pretty nice colorless V Pokemon, 210 hit points, with that Soft Wool ability. It takes 30 less damage from attacks, which is nice. So very tanky for a 2-prizer. And it has that Revenge Blast attack. For 3 colors, you do 120 plus 30 more for each prize card your opponent has already taken. So again, he's this late game beat stick, trying to punish the opponent, kind of like the last stand attacker, really. Where as the game progresses, he becomes much stronger. He kind of has that Cramorant V feel where he's always that sort of 62nd, 63rd card into decks, because if you're playing Acceleration, you can just weave in this Dubwool. I think ultimately, like I was saying with Ninetales, Firebox is already so boxy that you probably don't want this card because he's only late game centric, and a lot of the time you want to filter your cards often with a Welder deck, so not quite good enough for Welder in my opinion. Potentially an option in things like Rillaboom, potentially an option in like Malamar, but again, I don't think it's that ideal. You'd rather have some other big late game swingers in the deck. So yeah, I think Rillaboom doesn't really have, Dubwool doesn't have much of a home. because he is only late game centric. Comparing him to Cramorant, which is potentially like an early game play as well as a late game play, I think that's a big contributing factor as to why Cramorant has seen so much use. Whereas Double is only exactly a late game card, so I'm giving him a bit less credit there. Greedent now is a stage 1. It's a 120 hit point colorless guy with Greedy Tail. You can search your deck for a tool, reveal it and put it straight into your hand once per turn. Unfortunately, we're in a format where we have Stellar Wish, we have Adventure Bag, we have Guzhala. There are far, far better means of getting our tools into play, so Greedent is going to be given that 1 star. And that's it, guys. That is the overall ratings. The breakdown is 41 stars. I have been brutal for this set, but I still thought a lot of these cards are worth mentioning. Obviously, sometimes the community are more hyped than I am, as you can see on the breakdown. Also, just bear in mind, if you add up these totals, there's less for the community because there were some slides that they didn't get to rates just because I added them later on. But yeah, a large quantity of 1 stars. I gave out 5 stars. The Eldegoss, the Boss's Orders, the Scoop Up Net, and both the Dragapult and the VMAX because they basically go hand in hand. A handful of decent 4 stars out there, and some relatively nice archetypes that could be below the top tier as well. The community also gave out 5 stars. They gave, I think it was Eldegoss, Boss's Orders, Scoop Up Net, and then it was Twin Energy and Tool Scrapper also got the 5-star treatment for them. Dragapult just missed out on the 5-star treatment. It was slightly beaten out by like 1% on the 4-star. But yeah, they're a lot more hyped on Twin Energy, which I think sucks, and Tool Scrapper, which I think is being looked at in rose-tinted glasses because it was used in a format with Garbodor, and its main reason for play was because of Garbodor. So yeah. For the summary as well, the TLDR, if you just want to send the next 2 screenshots to your friends and save themselves all of the time we've just spent talking about these things, you can go ahead and do that. For supporters, Boss's Orders and Nothing Else Matters. For stadiums, there's Turffield that helps out grass stuff, and Galar Mine for control, as well as buffing these Tangrowth and Milotic decks, as well as being a general annoyance for Jirachi. Bucket is nice for Frostmoth. Scoop Up Net is busted. Tool Scrapper is an option. And we have some great special energies in the format as well. For Pokemon, the summary is Eldegoss is definitely something you want to get a hold of. Rillaboom is a potential low-tier beatstick deck. Fire didn't get too much, but Ninetales is an option in the Fire Toolbox. For Water, not much going on here. Milotic potentially is a deck, but not much else. Lightning gets another great couple of cards in Boltund as a basic, and Toxtricity as his own thing. Colorless didn't get too much, I'm afraid. Psychic got another whole heap of cards, Dragapult being the flagship one here, as well as the Baby Dragapult being a new annoyance. I actually think the Colossal could be a nice deck. I have hopes for it. I think that Sandaconda is grossly underrated right now, and I want to test him out for sure. Garbodor obviously just goes in Toxtricity, but is nice. And for the metal stuff, Copperaja and Meowth as potential includes into Zacian, and we all know Zacian is crazy. So yeah, that's it, guys. I hope you did enjoy this long set review. Sorry for the sniffing and coughing going on. I do have a bit of a cold right now. It's just a cold. Chill. It's fine. But thanks for watching the entire video if you did. And it's a bit of a shame right now that tournaments have cancelled. So we're going to be playing this predominantly on PTCGO and on online tournaments. But I will still try and be giving you a lot of coverage for this set, you know. They can take away our tournaments, but they can't take away our passion for the game. So there's still going to be plenty on this channel, and expect a bunch of new decks coming out over the next few days and weeks. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I really would appreciate if you gave this video a like. It took a lot of time to put together and to record, of course. So yeah, show your appreciation down below. Tell me your favorite cards of the set. What's a flop? What's not? How are you going to be building Dragapult? Is Boss's Orders going into everything? I'll hear it all down below. And I will see you tomorrow for another video. Cheers.